The June 27th, 2023 Liquor Board hearing is now in session. The board now has all of its meetings transcribed, which serves as minutes of the hearing. The board keeps such minutes stored electronically, and they're available to review by calling the board for an appointment. The board keeps these stored electronically, and they are available and made available to you, but you must have that appointment. I now make a motion that the transcripts of the previous board hearing held on April 11th, 2023 be accepted as the board minutes for that date, and I ask for a second.
I second.
Okay, thank you. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Praley.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome. Good to see everybody here tonight. It's been a while. Before each of these hearings, I make just a couple brief announcements. The first is that the commissioners before you tonight are all part-time public servants. They all have other outside interests. Now, when they know they have a conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict, they will recuse themselves. However, due to the number of cases that we have and the opportunity for members of the public to come and testify in opposition or in favor of an application, it'd be impossible for each member to know whether or not they're going to have a conflict on any given case. So when your case is called, if you believe that any of the commissioners before you has a conflict or the appearance of a conflict, you need to make that known to the board, and we will act on it appropriately. Otherwise, we'll proceed forward under the assumption that there is no conflict. Second, our board's rules and regulation provide that the chair, for the purposes of administrative and judicial economy, can have board's counsel rule on the admissibility of evidence and objections if there are counsel present and objections are made for any given case. As you're aware, this board handles many cases at every hearing, so this assignment allows us to actually expedite the hearings. So there may be certain instances where, rather than the chairman turning to me advising the chairman on a piece of evidence or admissibility thereof, I'll simply make a ruling, and my ruling will be that of the board and the chair. That is really all that I have tonight in terms of announcements. So with that, I'll turn it over to our newly appointed Chief Inspector Ford, and I'll ask him to read the first case. Chief Inspector Ford, please.
Thank you, Mr. Praley. Just a reminder to everybody that the summons to appear for Pfeiffer's Deli and Craft Beer House has been postponed to August 8th of this year. So therefore, our first case is Cheverdy's Liquors. Thank you, Mr. Bittner.
Chairman, members of the board, good evening. Richard Bittner, the ITTA, on behalf of the licensees who are approaching. Board's previously waived Zach Poos Cheverdy from his appearance. Note that for the record, waive any appeal because of that issue.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bittner.
So anyone wishing to testify for or against, please come forward and remain standing and raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may be seated. So I'm going to start with the detectives to the left. If you could please state your name and address for the record.
Corporal Tom Middleton, Anne Arundel County Police, assigned to Western District.
Corporal Jim Mountcastle, Anne Arundel County Police.
Richard Bittner, BITTNER, on behalf of licensees.
Jerry Cheverdy, owner of Cheverdy's Liquors.
And state your address, please.
6719 Chesapeake Center Drive, Glen Burnie.
Albert Cheverdy, Cheverdy's Liquor, 6719 Chesapeake Center Drive, Glen Burnie.
Thank you, everyone. Mr. Praley?
All right, thank you all. Corporal, if you could please provide a statement of facts to the board, please.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. Again, Corporal Middleton, Anne Arundel County Police. This incident was March 6th of this year, 2023. It's approximately 8:30 p.m. Detective Mountcastle and I were working Operation Save, conducting alcohol sales compliance checks of retail businesses. We directed a confidential source, 20 years of age, to enter Cheverdy's Liquors at 6721 Chesapeake Center Drive, Suite 140 in Glen Burnie, Anne Arundel County, Maryland.
Just for the record, the reading personal knowledge.
Understood. Overruled. You can continue.
And just for the sake of the confidential source, I do have a certified copy of Maryland Motor Vehicle that certified the age of the CS that we were using on that night. We observed the confidential source enter the business. CS went to the store, picked out an 18-pack of Bud Light beer, took it to the front counter. The CS was given official Anne Arundel County funds and was able to purchase the Bud Light beer from the clerk. The clerk did not ask the confidential source for any identification. The CS exited the business immediately.
Overruled.
Immediately turned over the alcoholic beverages to us. I know through my training, knowledge, and experience that Bud Light beer is an alcoholic beverage. Detective Mountcastle and I entered the store, identified ourselves as police officers, and identified the clerk as Miss Lisa Marie Maid, or Maid of March 3rd of 1965. She advised that she doesn't normally work in the store, was just helping out the business. She advised that she has not had any alcohol awareness training. There was another employee in the store at the counter. A photograph was taken of Miss Maid in the Anne Arundel County liquor license, which was properly displayed in the store. Photograph was taken of the Bud Light beer, and it was subsequently destroyed. Mrs. Maid was cooperative, and the store was not busy. Copy of the report was then forwarded to the Anne Arundel County Liquor Board.
All right, thank you, Detective. Mr. Bittner, any questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
Mr. Chairman, any questions of the detective?
Yes, detectives, you noted that there was another employee in the store. Was that employee ever identified? Do you
No.
have a name or anything?
No, it was not identified.
Okay. That's all the questions at this time
Okay.
I have.
Commissioner Duffy, any questions?
No question.
Commissioner Snoops?
No questions.
All right. Mr. Bittner, we'll turn it over to you. You can present your client's case by way of proper testimony or combination of both.
Well, I just know for the record of motion. Mission, there's been no proof of the age of the minor. I specifically requested that June the 5th from the board, and I'll submit.
Okay. That'll be overruled, but you can go ahead and present your case.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So if I may, by way of proffer, the other person on scene was Sean Maid, the person who served's husband. He is a known entity to the board. I believe there's a management agreement on file, tips, TAMs on file for him. And as you heard from the officer and you see in the report, the staff on site, the Chevertys were not on site. Of course, the board knows that this is a family-owned operation. The Cheverty family has had the establishment for over 25 years, largely without incident. But on that particular night, Sean Maid was on site. They were wrapping up. He was doing the tally. Customer came in, and Miss Maid, no good deed goes unpunished, volunteered to help out, ring up the sale. She neglected to check, both because she was not certified in that, and I think a lot had to do with the fact that she was facing a very serious surgery the next day. She tells me, and my clients tell me, her mind really was elsewhere at that moment. And it's no going away from it. It happened. My clients are here extremely contrite. This establishment, the board knows, is located in the shopping area where Walmart is, up off of Ordnance Road in Glen Burnie. The clientele that partakes are really, it's an older clientele. I'm advised that it's mostly mature women who are shopping in Walmart, do their grocery shopping, stop into Cheverty's to pick up whatever else they need. They're not open late. They close most days at 9, 10 Friday and Saturday, 4 on Sunday. The board will recall that there's a quite expansive parking lot in front of the establishment with some woods. Never been an issue of drinking on the parking lot, problems with consumption of alcohol in the woods. I think generally, as I understand, they have a good reputation. They continue to try to employ best practices at the shop. They've doubled down on that. Miss Maid has been alcohol awareness certified. Another employee that they just brought in likewise was alcohol awareness certified. And I'll offer that up with some representative photos of some new signage that the Chevertys have installed and the new card reader that they've purchased. Mr. Cheverty left the receipt at home, but it was $485 plus tax, delivery, installation, rims out the door. And they've been using it. It's the type of, so I'd ask if I could hand up 1 and 2. And I do not. I was just provided this today. These are copies for the board. We don't need. I don't have any extra. I have 1 extra.
It's okay. We can share, Mr. Bittner, if you need them.
So the Chevertys recognize the gravity of this. They understand that they don't want to be a point of sales to minors. They're trying everything humanly possible not to be. And given all their proactive undertakings, I'd ask the board to consider a reprimand and the cost in this matter.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Bittner. Would you like these to be admitted into evidence?
Please.
1, 2, and 3. Okay, they'll be admitted. Mr. Chairman, any questions?
Yes, I do. It's my understanding that Mr. Mead was the other employee in the building?
Yes.
And Mr. Mead appears to be, from the photos taken by the officers, on the management agreement.
On what?
The management agreement?
Yes.
Okay, but Mrs. Mead was not. Did Mr. Mead approach, does anybody know if Mr. Mead approached his wife to see if he could be of help? And that he was the manager of record?
I think he was totally distracted by doing the checkout. It was a few minutes before checkout, tallying the lottery. We start checkout around 8:15 on the lottery. We close that early, so then we can focus on closing the store. And I think he was totally distracted doing that. Plus, she was having cancer surgery the next day. So both of them were just focusing on, I think, getting out of there.
Does anybody know if that's why Mrs. Mead is not here today after being summoned?
She didn't receive this.
I don't represent her. I don't know why she's not.
Did not receive.
I imagine, Mr. Chairman,
we
if
know.
she had have appeared, she would have invoked her Fifth Amendment.
Oh, that must have gone to the house, not to us.
She is still employed at the establishment.
Okay, we do have a signed summons by her stating that she was going to appear this evening, but didn't. So I want to make that part of the record. I'm also a little, I guess, taken back the fact that her husband was in the store and she was being approached by 2 of our county police officers for the sale to a minor, and he didn't come to her aid or assistance as far as...
They were probably only 2 feet apart when all this was happening.
I'm sorry.
They were both behind the counter and about 2 feet apart. Couldn't be more than 2 feet apart at any time. I don't know exactly what happened during their interaction with the officer, but they were together.
Okay, thank you. That's all the questions I have right now.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Duffy, any questions?
No questions.
Commissioner Snoops?
No questions.
All right. Mr. Bittner, final word. Anything you want to add, sir?
I do not, other than what I've said, is to restate that. The employees on site were polite and cooperative. The licensees have taken proactive actions to try to combat this issue. We'd ask you to consider that.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Fraley. Excuse me. I'm going to make a motion in a second, but what I want to do is make sure that I understand that when it comes to Shavardy's, within the last 5 years, you've had 2 other stings that were you were found guilty of. And that's just within the last 5 years. One of them was October 5th of 2019, where you received a reprimand, which for a sale to a minor to receive a reprimand, I'm sure the board felt it was the first time in maybe a long time, and they felt justified in it. I don't doubt that. Then almost 3 years later, November 5th of 2022, again, there was a sting or a alcohol violation, and you came before the board, and they found you guilty at that time, and the fine was $500. This is quite a bit in a short period of time. It really is. And I'm not sure exactly the reason, but I'm sure Mr. and Mrs. Shavardy, you're going to look into this and try to resolve this so it doesn't happen again. And I think that's important. But listening to the officer's testimony, listening to everything being said, I'm going to make a motion that we find you guilty of this charge, and that the fine for each of the charge be $1,000, a total of $2,000. Now, this is a motion I'm putting in front of the board.
I second the motion.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, all those in favor?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just on the point of the question, would the board consider suspending part of that fine as a further incentive to my clients, knowing that they've had to pay a significant fine here, but there's still a significant portion hanging over their head, perhaps would be further incentive? Just ask you to consider that.
No, I think I'd like to stick to the fine dictated.
Understand.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bittner. All right, so Mr. and Mrs. Shavardy, again, hopefully you can find a way of stopping this from happening again. We wish you all the luck in the world. It's $1,000 per count, 2 counts, $2,000 plus court costs or administrative fees. Thank you both very much. Lots
Thank you all
of luck
very
in the
much.
future.
Thank you all.
It was my understanding the officers had a vacation plan and were going to the Bahamas, but they've appeared here today. So we thank them for their service and be safe.
Thank you, everyone. Calling our next case, Fairfield Inn and Suites, BWI, Hospitality Services, LLC, Kurt Blorstad, member, Amit Patel, member, Shaitan Patel, member. Thank you, Mr. Bittner.
Okay, Mr. Bittner, and those, because I was at the time of this investigation and inspections, I'm going to recuse myself and step down from the chair for this case and probably a couple more. Okay?
I understand.
Thank you.
Okay.
And the designation has been made that Commissioner Duffy will serve as chair in Mr. Harris's spot for this one and then the following 2 cases as well.
Certainly, no objection.
Gentlemen, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear?
Co-counsel here, so he's not being sworn.
Gotcha. Do you solemnly swear and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Vinay Sharma, counsel, in-house counsel for the licensee.
Richard Bittner, BITGNER, counsel for the licensees. Gentlemen.
Chetan Patel, licensee.
Kurt Blorstad, 1375 East West Shadyside Road.
Thank you all.
Do we have our inspector? Yeah, sorry.
I apologize, Mr. McGarvey. Mr. McGarvey remains standing. Do you solemnly swear and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And if you could, once again, state your name.
Nicholas McGarvey, Anne Arundel County Liquor Board Inspector.
Thank you.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, for the purposes of the record, Mr. Amit Patel's presence was waived, one of the licensees, and note that for the record, there'll be no appeal taken based on that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bittner. At this point, Mr. McGarvey, I would ask you to give a statement of facts to the board if you could.
Okay.
And we admit.
You admit? Okay. Would you waive any?
Maybe for administrative expediency, we're
Perfect.
happy to waive.
All right, thank you very much. Well, you're out of the hot seat for that one, but I am going to see if Mr. Bittner has any questions of Inspector McGarvey at this point.
I really don't, because the inspector, I believe, has never dealt with my clients, and that sadly is part of the problem here.
Sure.
So.
Understood. Okay. All right, well then, Mr. Bittner, we'll turn it over to you, and we will, unless the board has any questions of Inspector McGarvey. Do you have any questions?
No question.
Commissioner Snoops, do you have any questions?
No questions.
All right, Mr. Bittner, we'll turn it over to you, and you can go ahead and tell us what's going on with this one.
Thank you. And actually, I'd like to correct my prior statement where I said part of the problem. It was the whole problem, okay, if I may,
Sure.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Stoops. And I'll hand up the information I think the board has been requesting. We submitted it previously electronically, but I just wanted to make sure everybody had a copy. This is the Fairfield Inn and Suites BWI. They have a limited hospitality license, as the board knows, for the convenience of the guests. A license came into existence several years ago. A very popular license for tourists and business travelers here to our area, and a very valuable asset to my clients. So as a practical matter, what happens often in these situations, there's an entity that runs the hotel and an entity that runs the liquor license, if you would, the limited service license. And that's exactly what we had in this situation. So the Hospitality LLC was the management entity holding the liquor license for the benefit of Fairfield Inn and Suites and their, I don't want to say conglomerate, Benny can address that, I'm sorry, co-counsel can address that a little easier, but more clearly. And sadly, the manager, Leon Chittimus, who was in charge, who was noted to the board, who was recognized by the board back in September and February when all this began, he never once contacted the licensees, never once contacted corporate counsel, never once contacted anybody about any of the problems were going on. And I actually got involved in this case because there was a new entity, Hospitality LLC, is coming out. There's an application before the board to transfer this license, if it's not revoked here today, to a new entity. As part of that process, we've submitted to you a manager, Mr. Sharif Amez, Exhibit C. He's in place, he's on site, he's hands-on involved, has the key, if you would, alcohol awareness certified, someone that my clients feel, because of his extensive experience in the hospitality industry, will be able to manage temporarily until the new entity comes in, and then this gentleman probably will transfer in as a manager and stay. But clearly, we want to apologize for any inconvenience to the board, to the inspector, and really something that was brought to my attention here by Mr. Blordstadt, one of the licensees, is until he and the other licensees as well received the summons, there was a complete breakdown in communication here. We acknowledge that. But until they received the summons that these violations were pending, they weren't aware of the problem because Mr. Chittimus, the general manager that they had placed their confidence in, simply didn't tell them. And obviously that's not a legal defense. It's not really even an excuse. I think I've said this before. Christmas Eve, the Santa Maria crashed on the reef in front of outside the Dominican Republic. Rumors were Christopher Columbus was drunk celebrating Christmas Eve. There was a deck buoy piloting, but it was Christopher Columbus who took the hit. He's the captain. They understand their responsibility. We've corrected it. You have the workers' comp insurance. There's always been workers' comp insurance. The licensees have now up to date all three alcohol awareness certifications. The LLC is in proper form with a certificate of good standing. And again, we tender our apologies. And it should note that the entity Fairfield, if you would, that extended hospitality group, has some 50 hotels nationwide, 11 in Maryland, 3 here in Anne Arundel County, and never had a problem. Never had a problem. And they're putting into place some repetition so that this won't happen again, so that there'll be other persons who can follow back up, some redundancy that they identified perhaps was a little weakness in their system. So we would ask, most respectfully, board consider a reprimand and an assessment of the cost in this matter. And hopefully we'll be back before you next month. I think I need a floor plan still to be submitted in that case for a transfer if the board sees fit. My clients are happy to answer any questions.
All right. Commissioner Duffy, any questions?
No question.
Commissioner Snoops, any questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
All right. Mr. Bittner, anything you'd like to add?
No.
Okay. All right, well, Mr. Duffy, we'll turn it over to you.
Mr. Bender, I have to say that you really explained that well. Now, comprehension was very key to your presentation.
Thank you.
But I must say that the violation of cooperation as well as that of record does require a fine, and therefore I would motion that you'll be fined $350 per violation, which means that it will be a total of $700, and that to include administrative fee as well. And that was a motion.
I second the motion.
Are there any questions on the motion? If no question, then the motion stand as read. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, as well.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
You may be excused.
Thank you very much. Thank you, members of the board. Thank you.
Next case is My Place, JKW Inc., Sun Wilson, Secretary Treasurer, Young K, President, Courtney Brooks, Manager, William Major, Manager, Corporal Braden, badge number 1990, Officer Kinsey, badge number 2518, Deputy Chief Inspector Sean Ralston. This is a Class D beer, wine, liquor with a dancing and Sunday license located at 1676 Annapolis Road, Odenton, Maryland, 21113. There are no restrictions on the license. Number 1, violation of the rules and regulations of the Board of License Commissioners for Anne Arundel County, Chapter 3, Section 3.02, cooperation regarding Board of License Commissioners for Anne Arundel County. Violation notice number 1251 by Deputy Chief Inspector Sean Ralston, dated February 19th, 2023. Number 2, violation of the rules and regulations of the Board of License Commissioners for Anne Arundel County, Chapter 4, Section 4.05, prohibited hours regarding Board of License Commissioners for Anne Arundel County, violation notice number 1251 by Deputy Chief Inspector Sean Ralston, dated February 19th, 2023. Number 3, violation of rules and regulations of the Board of License Commissioners for Anne Arundel County, Chapter 4, Section 4.16, illegal conduct regarding Board of License Commissioners for Anne Arundel County, violation notice number 1251 by Deputy Chief Inspector Sean Ralston, dated February 19th, 2023. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? You may be seated. If you could please state your name for the record, your address.
Sean Ralston, Anne Arundel County Deputy Chief and Liquor Board Inspector.
William Major, 8026 New Colony Court, Chevron, Maryland.
Son Wilson. Excuse me. Son Wilson, 1809 Montreal Road, 7 Maryland 2114.
John K. 1809 Montreal Road, 7 Maryland.
Courtney Brooks, 117 Hoyle Lane, Savannah Park, Maryland 21146.
Thank you all. Mr. Praley?
All right, thank you. Just to note for the record, this is another case that Mr. Harris has recused himself from, and as such, we've designated Commissioner Duffy to serve as chairman for this matter. And at this point, I would ask for Deputy Chief Ralston to provide the board with a statement of facts, please.
On February 14th and February 19th, 2023, at or about 2:12 a.m., Inspector Ralston and Chief Harris were accompanied by Corporal Brady and Officer Kinsey to investigate an anonymous complaint of My Place operating during prohibited hours. Upon entry into the parking lot, there were people by the vehicles next to My Place and the rear entrance to Wine Box. Due to no street lights at all, it was hard to estimate how many were in the parking lot at that time. The lack of lighting in the parking lot does present a danger for cars and pedestrians at night. Upon entry into My Place, there were approximately 20 people within the establishment, with about half of them still consuming alcohol after we had entered. The manager was instructed to cease operations, and personnel were instructed to put their drinks down and exit the establishment. The manager on duty, Courtney Brooks, instructed everyone to exit.
All right, thank you. Now, do you all have any questions of Deputy Chief Ralston based on his recitation of facts?
No, we don't.
Okay, no questions. All right, let's see if the board has any questions. Commissioner Duffy, do you have any questions? Mr. Ralston?
No question.
Commissioner Snoops?
No questions.
All right. Well, then we will turn it over to you all as licensees and employees there. You guys can present your case at this point in mitigation. You can do so by way of calling witnesses, presenting any types of documents or exhibits that you may have, or merely telling the board by way of proffer what happened. So we'll turn the floor over to you, and then we'll see if the board has any questions. Okay.
Okay. I'm going to speak for everyone. Like,
sure.
I'm the manager. Like, I'm the main manager there, and I'm going to accept full responsibility for what happened. Because my lack of training and leadership, I should have made more emphasis on we need to be out of here at this time. And it was a little bit lackadaisical situation, and I'm going to take responsibility for it. But what we have done is I emphasize that we got to be out there. We set our clock like 15 minutes ahead of time now, so we're ahead on our bar clock so we can get out there earlier. I'm going to say I've been there for 15 years, and the licensee's been there for over 25 years, if I'm not mistaken. We pretty much follow the rules that we're supposed to follow. We run a pretty much of a tight ship. And I have dealt with Chairman Harris over the years many times, and I don't think we've ever really had any problems. I talked to Mr. Ford recently as far as the lighting situation, and we're still going to work on that. I haven't spoke to you since today when we talked about it, but we're going to do what we need to do to correct that. So I would ask the board to consider maybe giving us a reprimand in this situation.
Okay. Commissioner Duffy, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Commissioner Snoops, do you have any questions?
No questions.
All right, anything you guys want to add before we turn it over to the board for consideration? All right, Mr. Duffy.
Considering, Mr. Major, that you are accepting full responsibility for this, these are very serious complaints in reference to violation of cooperation, prohibited hours, as well. And so therefore, I make a motion that we fine you $500 for each violation for cooperation and prohibit hours and that is to include the administration fee.
And can I just interject right here, Commissioner David? There are actually 3 charges for this one. Just so we're aware, there's cooperation, prohibited hours, and illegal conduct.
Oh, legal conduct. Then that would be $500 for each of the 3 cases, which would come to a total of $1,500 for illegal conduct as well as cooperation and prohibited hours. And that is to include that of administrative fee. And that was a motion that I will be making.
I second the motion, the 500 per count.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. You may be dismissed.
Thank you all.
Have a nice evening. Our next case is the Wine Box. Vaishi Inc., Vaishali Patel, President, Ronell L. Johnson, staff. Thank you, Mr. Pitcher.
All right, and before we get started on this one, I'll just note for the record that this is another case where the then Chief Inspector Wayne Harris, now Chairman Harris, is recusing himself, and we've designated Commissioner Duffy to serve in his place as chairman for this.
I'm sorry, everybody remain standing. Raise your right hand. I apologize. Do you solemnly swear and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. You may be seated. I'm going to start with the inspector to my left. Please state your name.
Scott Montaigne, Robert Scott Montaigne, Anne Arundel County Liquor Board Inspector.
Officer.
Corporal Rhodes, Anne Arundel County Police, Northern District.
Thank you. Mr. Pitcher. Please state your name and address.
Thank you, Mr. Fraley.
Mr.
J.
Pitcher.
William Pitcher.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please state your name and address for the record.
Mine?
Yes.
Yes. J. William Pitcher, 1901 Hunt Meadow Drive.
Thank you.
Annapolis.
Austin Hahn, 1761 Carriage Circle, Savron.
Maryland 21144.
Vaishali Patel, 7509 Charing Court, Hanover, Maryland 21076.
Ronell Johnson, 443 Hardmore Court, Glen Burnie, Maryland 21061.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Ms. Patel is the licensee. I have been representing Mr. Hahn and his family in the matter of purchasing this property, which consists of not only a packaged goods store, but also a tavern or a bar with separate entrances in the Fort Meade area. And Mr. Hahn is the contract purchaser, and we were before you probably now a year or more ago for the transfer to accomplish the sale. And there were a number of issues that needed to be resolved with various departments, county government, including the health department, that have, for many, many reasons over the year, dragged on. And in fact, it's been going on so long that I actually tried to retire from the active practice of law this past spring and was brought back in here to help Mr. Hahn. So that's how long it's been going on. And we heard about this violation. So you have the licensee and then the contract purchaser here who has got a management agreement with the licensee. Janelle, at the end there, was the manager on site at the time that this incident occurred. We have no defense to the fact that they were actually still open at 2 a.m. when this all occurred. So we're not going to contest that fact, but there is, I think, quite a bit of evidence that we could offer, and I can proffer for you when the time comes, some of that which we hope will mitigate this violation. what our intent is to not only, operate the place according to the law and the regulations, but to accomplish the sale. And if we can, once we get this behind us, this violation behind us, we would hope that then they can finalize the transfer and the sale, the proceeds of which have been sitting in escrow for now a long time. So with that in mind, we're basically pleading guilty with an explanation. I have one or two things to offer when it comes to these three charges, and then we would offer mitigation. So that's where we are, Mr. Burley.
All right. Well, Mr. Pitcher, then, seeing as there's an admission of guilt, I'm assuming that you would waive any reading of the report by the inspector, right?
Sure.
Okay. Great. Just takes a little time off of it.
Yeah.
So I will give you the opportunity to ask questions of Inspector Montana if you want to, and you can do that right now if you'd like, based on the reports.
Well, so then we should just revert to the report.
Well, if you just have any questions, now's your opportunity to do it. If you don't have any questions, I'll turn it over to you and you can proceed.
Well, I have one or two.
Okay, sure.
And actually, it was on there are two reports. One dated the 19th of February, the other the 20th of February, both by Inspector Montaigne, or Officer Montaigne. And I had one or two questions. As I understand it, you came to this location from next door, the case that we just heard previously, from my place, and saw that it was still open. Is that correct?
I was with Wayne Harris and Inspector Ralston, and we pulled in the parking lot. As I pulled in the parking lot, I observed the door opening and closing at the establishment we're talking about in the report.
Was that prior to 2 or after 2 a.m.?
That was at about 2:11 a.m.
At 2:11. The door opened and closed to the bar.
To the bar.
Okay. Did anyone exit at that point? Or
Yes,
just
there was
open the
somebody
door
that
and then
exited.
shut it again?
Nope, somebody exited from it.
Okay. And then when you came to the door, did you walk in or did you have to knock? Was it locked or not?
So Corporal Rhodes and I both saw the individual leave. We walked up to the door and we could see lights and we could see people inside. So I knocked on the door at that time.
Okay. All right. Now, in the report, so that there are approximately 8 customers still inside when you went in.
That is correct.
Are you sure about that? And I know that there were other officers and inspectors there with you. Was it like a total of 8 people that maybe you saw, or was it 8 customers?
It was approximately 8 customers, and at the time of entry, it was only myself and Corporal Rhodes.
Okay. Well, that was something I wanted to try to clarify with you. And then you spoke to the manager that was on site at that time, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. That's no further questions.
Okay. Commissioner Duffy, do you have any questions?
No question.
Commissioner Snoops?
No questions.
All right. Well, then, Mr. Pitcher, we'll turn it over to you. Now's your chance to present your guys' case. And to go right ahead.
First, I'd like to call Mr. Hahn. Austin, you are the manager of both the liquor store and the bar, correct?
Yes.
Under a contract with the licensee?
Yes.
Okay. Were you on the site at the night of this event? Were you there?
I was there till 2 o'clock.
You were at the liquor store or in the bar?
I was in the front of the liquor store.
The liquor store. And as you were approaching 2 a.m., did you go to check on the bar closing?
Normally, I go back there around 1:50 or 1:55, check them, everybody is okay, and look at how the bartender, when you're ready, close it and clean up that. That's the most, every day I do that way.
Okay. Do you recall up to 8 customers being there just before 2 a.m.?
Honestly, I didn't look at the bar side because our step entrance only see the bar side. I didn't look at the front, but I asked bartender and employees, everything's okay. They say okay. That's why okay, and then close it and then clean up. That's what I tell them. After that, I'll leave.
So by about 2 o'clock, you were leaving.
Yeah, 2 o'clock. Yeah, I left 2 o'clock.
Okay. And who was there in terms of employees? What employees did you have?
I remember it's only Arundel. Then I just spoke to her, and everything's okay. Yes, okay, and then close it.
Okay.
And I left around 2 o'clock.
Okay. You weren't there when the inspectors came in?
No.
Okay. I'll offer questions, Ross.
Do you have any questions, Commissioner Duffy?
No question for Mr.
Commissioner
Hahn.
Snipes?
No.
Okay.
May I
Sure.
now turn to Janelle?
Absolutely.
Janelle, were you working there that night
Yes.
when you were coming up toward closing time, before 2 a.m.? Can you tell us what was going on then?
At that time, we were already, pushing people out. Music was off at about 1:40, 1:45. We started cleaning up. We started, last call. And to my knowledge, there were not 8 customers in the bar. At that time, it was myself, it was Ronald, it was the last customer that was sitting at the bar. He did stay.
He did what?
He did stay at the bar, that customer.
Okay. One customer.
One customer.
And why was he still there?
Ronald was.
Let me back up if I might. Who is Ronald?
Ronald is the other.
Ron Joaquin?
Joaquin, yes, Ronald Joaquin.
He's the other manager or
Yes.
the bartender that was there?
Yes.
Okay.
He offered him a ride home.
Offered this one customer?
The one customer a ride home, yes.
Why did he offer him a ride?
Because he felt that he had too much to drink.
Okay. So, the customer is sitting there.
Yes.
Was he sitting there when the inspector and the officer
Yes.
came? And were there any other customers sitting there?
Not to my knowledge, no.
They had already left?
They had already left.
And had you cleaned the place up by then?
Yeah, we were pretty much done, yeah.
Okay.
That's why the door was locked and no one else was in there.
Okay. Now, when the inspector came in, were you cooperative with him?
Yes.
Did you answer his questions?
Yes.
Did you put up any sort of resistance or
No.
anything like that? Did he ask you for anything that you were able to give him or not give him?
Like?
A license or a manager's agreement?
No,
or-
he didn't ask for any of that.
He didn't ask for that?
No.
So would you say that there was anything that you did not cooperate with?
There was nothing we didn't cooperate with.
Did you and the customer leave when he told you to leave?
Yes, we didn't even finish cleaning, so we just shut everything down and left.
Okay. Now, during this time of just before 2 o'clock and just after 2 o'clock and up until the inspector came in, did you sell anybody any
No.
alcohol? Okay. Was anybody drinking alcohol?
No, the customer had a beer in front of him. He did have a beer in front of him, but he didn't, to my knowledge, he stopped drinking because he couldn't drink anymore.
Okay.
He was out of it.
All right.
Commissioner Duffy, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Commissioner Snoops, any questions?
No questions.
Mr. Pitcher, any other witnesses?
Well, that's our case, Mr. Fraley. I can't explain why there's this discrepancy as to how many people were there, but, and I wanted to explain to you, this Ron Joaquin, the other manager, bartender that night, could not be here tonight. He has been injured, and he's got such a bad knee injury that he just had a couple of days ago, that he's on serious painkillers, and the doctor told him certainly not to testify in a case like this. but not to come.
Sound advice.
And I did not know that until tonight, so I apologize for not giving you further warning. But in my interview with him and with Janelle, I have found them to both be very forthcoming and cooperative and honest. And I think that the testimony has been that she was cooperative that evening. And so therefore, I would say that there's been no evidence to the contrary that the cooperation charge should fall by the wayside and be dismissed.
Okay. Anything else you want to add before it goes to the board for?
Well, yes. I think that this case also gets down to intent. There was no intent, I believe, according to the testimony, by anyone here to remain open for business, selling and serving after 2 a.m. Ron's intent was to close it. The contract purchaser's intent was, and told him, you have to close it. And he said, I'm going to take this guy home. Fine, but do it now. And he left. The confluence of the timing was a few minutes. They came over from my place, saw that there were lights on, and came in. And so there was never an intent there to remain open. I don't think there's any evidence other than the fact that there was a guy there who, before he left, took a swig of his drink. So we would ask you to take that into account here, but for the fact that he was going to take this guy home after he finished cleaning up and closing up, they would have probably been gone before the officer or before the inspector noticed that they were still had the light on and everything. I mean, we're talking about a 10 to 15 minute time frame here. And I believe that given all of that you should take that into account. And I certainly think that the cooperation charge does not bear out with what we have here. So that's our case.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Pitcher. Commissioner Duffy.
No, I'd like to ask the inspector to piggyback on the cooperation part, if you would, sir.
Yes, so the cooperation, I think, really ties back to the fact that the establishment should not have been opened. They were waiting. If you look at the second report, it mentions that they were waiting for a health department release. They were supposed to notify us of when they were going to open, and we also weren't made aware of the name change. There was a name on the outside that used to be Kim's. It had also changed. So the last piece of information was that we were waiting for that. So we weren't expecting them to be open when we showed up. So we were surprised by the fact that they were open and that they had customers in there at the time.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Pitcher, I'll let you respond to that or
Thank
ask
you.
a question if you want.
To your knowledge, Inspector, was there any order or communication to these folks not to be open? They've been open for a while.
Based on information I was provided by the chief at the time, they were not approved to be open as of yet. And when we went back in on the next day and provided the violation, we talked through that, and the manager even confirmed that when we talked to him.
Well, all I can say in response to that is that I had represented Mr. Hahn during the course of the whole winter and into the spring when this occurred, trying to get and iron out with the various departments the permits and the paperwork that needed to be done in order for the board to approve the transfer. I've never seen anything as their counsel in that matter that indicated that they should not be able to be open. It was all a matter of we can't get the transfer until we finalize all of these documents. But in fact, I think I remember talking to you, Mr. Braley, about that matter some time ago when they were coming up for the renewal on this. And we were a little bit worried that this would affect the renewal. And they've been operating all of that time. So again, I don't see how that bears on a charge of not being cooperative.
Okay. Anything else you want to add, Mr. Pitcher? Any more questions?
No, thank you.
Then we will turn it over to Commissioner Duffy. Mr. Duffy.
Well, Mr. Pitcher, we're going to, well, I will make a motion that we dismiss the cooperation part, but that we will fine you for illegal conduct and prohibit hours, a total of $1,000, and that's $500 per charge, to be consistent and transparent as much as we can possibly be, based upon the fact that we did leverage the 3 offense against the previous cases. So I make a motion that we dismiss cooperation and a total of fine for $1,000 to consider illegal conduct and prohibit hours. And that is the form of a motion.
I'll second the motion to drop the cooperation charge and do the 500 per count.
Okay, thank you. All in favor of? Aye.
Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. All right, our next case is Sonesta S. Sweets, Annapolis. Sonesta Maryland Beverages LLC, John G. Murray, authorized person. Stephen P. Miano, authorized person. Michael Murray, authorized person. Inspector Joe McKernan. This is restricted as of 3/12/2013. All front desk employees must be alcohol awareness certified. This is for change of officers. Currently, Shanae Molden, authorized person, Carlos Flores, authorized person, and Mark Sherwin, authorized person on behalf of Sonesta Maryland Beverages, LLC, 170 Admiral Cochran Drive, Annapolis, Maryland, 21401. Gentlemen, raise your right hands, please. Thank you. Do you solemnly swear and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may be seated. And if you could please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Stephen Miano, 34 Prospect Street, Needham, Massachusetts.
Thank you.
Michael Murray, 502 Lexington Court, Severna Park, Maryland, 21146.
Thank you. Mr. Praley?
All right, gentlemen, to try to save us a little bit of time here tonight, would you be opposed if we heard both of your change of officer requests together?
Of course, please.
Okay, great. Would you waive the reading of the other one? Chief Inspector Ford just read into the record the charges for, or not the charges, excuse me, I'm stuck on violation here, but read the case for the last one. Would you waive the reading for the second one? Okay, so we'll just let the record reflect that this is going to be for both change of officer requests, the first being at 107 Admiral Cochran Drive, and the second at 1160 Winterson Road. And if you gentlemen, have they been sworn in, Mr. Ford? Sorry, I did forget.
Yes.
Okay, great. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about these requests and what you're seeking, and we'll see if the board has any questions, okay?
Yeah, these are merely changes in executives and officers of the companies due to resignations of some of the previous authorized individuals.
Okay. Well, let's see if we have any questions. Mr. Harris, do you have any questions?
No questions at all.
Mr. Duffy, any questions?
No question.
Commissioner Snoops, any questions?
No questions.
All right, the packets seem to be in line. Is there anything that you guys would like to add?
I do not believe so, unless there are any other questions.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Praley. With that being said, and if the packet is in fact all accounted for, is all the certificates and all. I make a motion that we grant both transfers. All right, and I put that in the form of a motion.
I second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations. and
Thank you very
Lots of
much.
luck to you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you,
for
guys.
your time.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, Cracker Barrel.
Waiver, please.
Thank you very much. Anyone wishing to testify for or against, please approach and raise your right hands.
I'd like applicant as well, so I'll be being sworn in too.
Okay. Do you solemnly swear and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. You may be seated. Please state your name and address for the record.
Joshua Mayo, address of 2706 Paddock Park Drive, Thompson Station, Tennessee, 37179.
Thank you.
Jean Shuttleworth, 178 Clifftop Drive, Hendersonville, Tennessee, 37075.
Benjamin Carter, my personal address is 1441 Chatham Court, Crofton, Maryland, 21114.
All right, Mr. Carter, we will, I understand that you are both an applicant and counsel in this case. We'll turn it over to you. You can present your client's case by way of proper testimony or combination of both.
I will be proffering
Perfect.
the overwhelming majority. If I may distribute some exhibit books.
Sure.
And I'll give you guys this last copy when we're done. And if I could respectfully move those into the record now, all can be jointly as exhibit one. So about 3 years ago, Cracker Barrel began a nationwide rollout of beer, wine, and in some cases beer, wine, and liquor at the overwhelming majority of its restaurants. 3 years in, about 90% of its restaurants nationwide have some form of alcoholic beverage license. Maryland was one of the two last states, I believe, that you guys began this process on. And Cracker Barrel is extremely excited to roll out, hopefully with the board's approval, beer, wine, and liquor at the Linthicum Heights location. This is just a Class H. It was previously a Class B, but we will not be having any off sale. There will be no change in the mode of operations. There's going to be no bar. Nationwide, the average Cracker Barrel is doing about less than 2% alcoholic beverage service, and they have no reason to think this location will be any different. It's going to be the same experience, just with that additional option when you're there for lunch or dinner or brunch on the weekends. And we'd respectfully request that this board approve this application and grant this license.
All right, thank you, Mr. Carter. Mr. Chairman, any questions?
I do. I have a couple, Mr. Carter.
Sure.
First of all, I was surprised to hear that you're at 90%, but that's good. I guess the first question is, what is the minimal age of your employees who are going to be acting either as bar staff, servers, or delivery waiter or waitresses?
They'll all be 21.
So there'll be no alcohol moving anywhere in the building except by someone 21 and older?
That is, yes.
Okay, very good. The areas that we noticed highlighted, and thank you for doing that, I was kind of curious where you were keeping this alcohol, but I do see it's all kind of behind the scenes, and I think that's important. So when somebody on the floor orders alcohol, I'm assuming then that waiter or waitress over 21 is going to go back in the back where the alcohol is kept. Do they go to a person who is going to be responsible to open and pour it, or will they have that option themselves, being that they're over 21?
It's my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but based on what we've discussed at other locations, that it will be a manager who provides access, and it'll be someone over the age of 21 pouring and delivering to the tables.
Okay, very good. That's all the questions right now. Thank you.
Commissioner Duffy, any questions?
Yes, I do have one question in reference to how soon will you implement this training, and how long will you implement this training, and for what length of time do an employee have to be on duty to represent the company?
As far as the training, every employee would have any access to alcohol on the floor would take a serve safe training or a tips training.
A tip training?
Yes, sir, through the state of Maryland. Prior to being
the
able
length
to.
of time?
Before going live, our goal is to have 100% of the store trained and certified.
Okay.
Just to add, so my office does have a licensed tips trainer on staff, and she's actually spent all day today and will spend all day Thursday training the entire staff at another location. We intend to do similar things with all of the Maryland locations, including the store.
Okay. Very good.
Very good.
Thank you.
Any additional questions?
No.
Commissioner Snoops, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions.
Mr. Harris, do you have any other questions? I see you looking at the packet.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the last couple pages. No, actually, I'm very, very impressed with the packet, Mr. Carter, as well as the presentation Cracker Barrel has. You've answered the most important questions, and I understand that this is for in-house consumption only.
Correct. The application has been amended to a Class H, so there will be no off-sale whatsoever. And if there is, we'll be back before you.
Okay. And we'll see you then. And,
Hopefully not.
I'm good, Mr. Frail.
Okay, well then we'll turn it over to you.
Okay, with that being said, I'm going to make a motion that we grant the liquor license for Cracker Barrel. And I'm going to put that in the form of a motion, looking for a second.
I second approval.
Okay, with that being said, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Granted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Maybe we please be excused. Okay, final.
All right.
Oh,
yeah. Jim, we're gonna take a 5-minute recess before calling the next case. Okay. And that 5 minutes will start now. All right. If anybody needs it, you got it. You need to get in the back.
Is my key working?
board needs to get
All right, folks.
give them 1 minute.
1 minute warning, folks. 1 minute warning. Okay, everybody.
Thank you very much. Okay, Anne Arundel County Liquor Board is now back in session. Chief Ford, please call up the next case.
Gateway Village Wine and Spirits, Gateway Village Wine and Spirits LLC, Raghu Kumar, Managing Member, Inspector Jure Slocum. This is for a new license located at 2645A, Housley Road, Annapolis, Maryland, 21401.
Mr. Fogelman, will you waive reading?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Where we prefer.
So for everybody in the room who would like to testify for or against this new license, please stand and raise your right hand where you are. If you plan to testify, thank you. And
This is only if you're coming up to actually testify for or against the license. If you put your name on the sheet, that's fine, but if you're planning on coming up and presenting testimony to the board, stand up and raise your right hand.
thank you, everyone. Do you solemnly swear and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may be seated. Gentlemen, if you could please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, good evening. Stephen W. Fogelman on behalf of the applicant, Raghu Kumar.
Raghu Kumar, 174 South Southwood Avenue, Annapolis, Maryland.
Gerald Patnode, 497 Heritage Drive, Gettysburg, Pennsylvania.
Thank you.
And good evening. You have counsel here representing three protestants. My name is Brian Lyman, Lyman. We represent Festival Wine and Spirits, Lighthouse Liquors, and Liquor Mart and Deli, who are licensed establishments in the vicinity. Mr. Brown.
And Samuel J. Brown, BROWN, co-counsel on behalf of the three protestants.
And I did bring an entry of appearance that lists our clients and our name and address.
Oh, great. Thank you, Mr. Lyman, Mr. Brown.
Thank you.
All right, just to lay out some preliminary ground rules, we've all been here before and done this. We're going to let Mr. Fogelman present his client's case first. Obviously, Mr. Brown, Mr. Lyman can question any witnesses after that. Then I'm going to have members from the public stand up, say if they're here for or against, if we feel it's appropriate. If either of you want to call witnesses or talk to them, we'll have them, the members of the public who wish to testify, come before the board, state their full name and address for the record. Obviously, they'd be subject to questioning from either side, and then we will let Mr. Lyman and Mr. Brown take it away on their end, and hopefully we get out of here before 10 p.m.
Mr. Preda, we have one preliminary matter that we'd like Mr. Lyman to bring it up as to even the status and the standard and the ability to be here tonight. So if we could take 2 minutes and go into that preliminary, it would be appreciated.
Absolutely. Are you okay with that, Mr. Fogelman?
Absolutely.
Great.
This has to do with the interoffice zoning approval that was given by the Anne Arundel County Zoning Office. We've reviewed the review form for the alcoholic beverage license, and the review form submitted by Mr. Kumar does not contain acreage, building dimensions, building heights, or lot dimensions, or list all of the property or facility or his character and intentions with his portion of the property. The reason I bring this up is because this is a shopping center. And the shopping center under the Anne Arundel County Code is Zone C2. I believe that is in the zoning interoffice memorandum. And the office does reference the applicable section of the county code that the board needs to pay attention to. The reason I bring this up is because the board does have a specific rule. It's Rule 2.12 that says that the board cannot issue a license that's in violation of any of the zoning or land use restrictions. In this particular situation, we have a complex. We have a shopping center, basically. However, it's Zone C2, and C2 general commercial is mostly offices, or it's zoned that way. So when you actually look at 18.5102 of the county code, there is a matrix that specifies what are C1 uses, C2 uses, C3 uses, and C4 uses. And you have a P for permitted, you have C for conditional, and you have A for auxiliary. And what is particularly problematic here is that there's another important section of the county code that does not appear to have been considered by the zoning department, and that is 1810-113. And I'll just read it out for the board. This is a business complex, and we've got a business complex with auxiliary uses shall comply with all the following requirements. And number one is auxiliary uses may occupy no more than 50% of the floor area of a business complex. Number two, any auxiliary use may not occupy more than 25,000 square feet of floor area. And then it goes on, section 3 is about entertainment complex, which I don't think is applicable here. But what's important is that I assume the board members have a cursory understanding of what's a Gateway Village. We have a Best Buy, we have a Safeway, we have Dick's Sporting Goods that has replaced Burlington Coat Factory, and we have Staples, okay? And those are pretty big buildings. I've got the numbers here. I'm not prepared to testify to them, but we did the research some time ago. Safeway is 53,000 square feet. Staples is 24,000 square feet and change. We've got Dick's Sporting Goods, which is 2 stories at almost 70,000 square feet. And we have Best Buy clocking in at 58,000 square feet. In sum total, that's 206,000 square feet. And every single one of those 4 main anchor uses is an auxiliary use under 18.5-102 of the Anne Arundel County Code. So our preliminary motion is that we believe that this needs additional consideration by the Planning and Zoning Department. Mr. Brown just reminded me that we believe the total square footage is just over 300,000 square feet. And so you have already existing in these 4 anchors a square footage that exceeds the county requirements under the county ordinances under the zoning code. That's the nature of the preliminary motion. We think it would be prudent for the board to potentially postpone, get more information from the zoning department, and specifically address these particular issues as to the auxiliary uses and the square footage requirements. And I'll again cite the code section. It's section 18-10-113 that mandates requirements for the square footage of the business area complexes, and that any auxiliary use may not occupy more than 25,000 square feet of floor area. So we think that the whole Gateway Village Shopping Center may not be in compliance. That's the preliminary motion, and we'll leave the board to consider that.
All right, Mr.
Yes, thank you. I don't represent the developer. I don't represent the landlord. I represent an applicant for using 2,327 square feet. It's to the best of our knowledge, to the best of the landlord's knowledge and everyone else, this is a permitted use within the shopping center. And I don't believe we'd be here if it were not permitted. So I believe that this is, quite frankly, not even the forum to discuss this matter. I would respectfully suggest that it's a bit of a red herring, and I would object to the motion.
Well, clearly this board is not, we're not savants on county code. There was a lot of information that was just presented to us. However, it's always been the board's policy and the policy of the administration that we rely on the Office of Planning and Zoning in determining whether to move forward with this. So, while there is not a specific recitation to 1810-113 in Ms. Jenkins' memorandum, there's really nothing in there that leads me to believe that she didn't consider it. If you guys have additional, stuff that you would like to file with the circuit court, I think you certainly can appeal it to that level based on an entire complex that may not be in compliance with Anne Arundel County Code. But for tonight's purposes, we're going to proceed forward with the hearing, and you ultimately have the right to appeal.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Pirelli. I'd just like to clarify 2 points. Mr. Fogelman indicated that it was a permitted use, and that is not,
Sure.
If that's a term of art, it is not actually permitted under the code. It's an auxiliary use.
Yeah, understand.
And the packaged goods store is also an auxiliary use. So the 2,300 square foot application that the board is considering tonight is an additional auxiliary use that also has to comply with 1810-113.
Yeah, I understand,
code.
Mr. Lyman, and I think that Ms. Jenkins in the memorandum does clearly spell out that it is an auxiliary use which she deems permissible. So, you know, it's always, as I mentioned, it's always been the board's position to rely on the Office of Planning and Zoning in making that determination.
And if I could just add one more thing, this very, well, not this very board, but this agency approved a license at this exact location on August, the transcripts from August 16, 2019.
Yeah, I think it brings back nightmares.
Held
for most
before
people.
Commissioner Duffy. Yeah, so I mean, we've been down this road
Right.
before without a problem.
Understood. So, you know, that will be denied, and we'll just allow Mr. Fogelman to proceed forward with this case. But obviously, if you all want to pick a fight with planning and zoning on it, that's your prerogative. You can certainly appeal it. Okay? Thank you.
All right, thank you. First witness will be the applicant, Raghu Kumar.
Very good evening to the honorable members of the board.
Let me start. All right, Mr. Kumar, you're here applying for a Class A license tonight?
Correct.
Okay, and you live in Annapolis, right?
Yes, sir.
Whereabouts?
174 South Southwood Avenue.
All right, and how long have you been a resident of Annapolis?
Since 1993.
And how long have you been a United States citizen?
Since 1996.
All right, and you have been indeed a county resident for at least 2 years prior to the filing of the application.
Right.
All right. And you are, the name of your LLC is Gateway Village Wine and Spirits LLC?
Correct.
All right. And the trade name that you intend to use is Gateway Village Wine and Spirits?
Correct.
All right. And that's at 2645A Housley Road in Annapolis, Maryland?
Correct.
All right. And that is in the Gateway Village Shopping Center?
Yes, sir.
All right. Your address is 2645A Housley Road, Annapolis, 21401 of the unit. The shopping center has somewhere between 275 300,000 square feet?
Yes, sir.
And the unit that you would like to do business in is about 2327?
Correct.
Okay. And you have never been found guilty of a felony?
No.
Never been found guilty of violating any laws governing the sale of alcoholic beverages or gambling?
No.
All right. And you have not had a license for the sale of alcoholic beverages suspended or revoked?
No.
You have a pecuniary interest in this business?
Yes, I do.
All right. And you are not, you are indeed a license holder, right?
Yes, sir.
And that's in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. And that's a Class B restaurant license called, and it's Indigo Restaurant?
Yes, it's India's Restaurant LLC.
All right, but you are not pecuniarily interested in any other place of business in Anne Arundel County?
No.
Or in any of the counties of Maryland?
No.
Or Baltimore City?
No.
Okay. And you are the only person pecuniarily interested in the license that you're applying for tonight, isn't that right? All right, now tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, again, my name is Raghu Kumar, and thank you, and would be the proud owner of the newly proposed liquor license for the Gateway Village Wine and Spirit Shop. My mission for the proposed shop would be to promote local craft beers, wines, and local distilleries. As a proud resident and a local boy who grew up in the beautiful city of Annapolis and Anne Arundel counties, I understand the importance of local roots. My father was the very first proud owner for Indian restaurant, India Palace on Main Street, and then we relocated to West Street under the name of India's. So the very first restaurant was engulfed in fire in the early 1990s, so which really, kind of solidified as a growing teenager the sense of community and the outpour of love and concern for the well-being of our family, and it till this day we still remains, who I am. My father and I still continue to talk about till this day how concerned the people of Annapolis were for our continued success in Annapolis, from random calls to the mayor, the governor, the local realtors to find us a suitable location to reopen, for which we are still to this day indebted. So over time, me and my father tried to be a very important part of the community outreach, whether it would be supporting the Annapolis Symphony Orchestra or helping the Maryland Hall, or as simple as giving the gift certificates to the local charities. As a young boy, I understood the importance of work ethics, responsibilities, serving alcohol, as there were incidents when the waiters had ended up serving the alcohol to the minors, and how devastated my father was. So I've made my mission to make sure that I give proper education and training so there won't be any mishandling or mistakes or in serving alcohol to the minors. I currently have one liquor license in the town of Rehoboth Beach, but as a proud resident of Annapolis, I'm excited to be proud owner of newly proposed beer, wine, and spirit shop. The shop would be the most up-to-date with technology. Instead of in-your-face window and door advertisements, I would have digital yet sophisticated signs. The whole concept would be to give sensible, polite, tasteful, and educational aesthetics to the shop, which is very important to me and my family. Again, I thank you for the consideration of my application and for the possible opportunity to employ the local and Arundel County residents. Thank you.
Thank you. So you're a son of Annapolis?
Yes, sir.
You went to Annapolis Senior High?
Yes, sir.
You went to middle school here?
Yes, sir.
Tell me a little bit about why you decided that this would be a great project and that whether there's public need and desire.
Well, I mean, there's definitely public need and desire because...
How far do you live from the proposed location?
About 2 miles, if that. And then, we set up a booth over there just to get the response from the locals, how they felt about us coming in. And, we were surprised. We got hundreds of signatures and petitions that they were very happy to see us, opening up a wine and spirit shop over there. Definitely with the, it's going to be a kind of a one-stop shop. You got the 5 anchor stores. You have the local restaurant over there, Lemongrass, Sakura, and Excellence. So, and it's a.
But you're a customer. I mean, you've been a customer at this shopping center before this idea even came up, right?
Yeah. I mean, I always went to Best Buy, PetSmart. Being a dog owner, so it's always been one of the go shopping centers.
Tell me, so when you did speak with people and ask them to sign a petition, did you find a warm reception?
Definitely. People were excited.
So tell me if there's going to be any traffic or parking concerns that the board should know about?
No, there shouldn't be. I mean, it's a big enough shopping center. There's enough parking. There's ample parking, and where we are, it's a little bit of a standalone. So we're going to have our own designated parking, and it's very easy to go in and out. So there wouldn't be any concerns of parking or traffic.
All right, let's talk about any potential for crime or public disorder with your shop.
I don't see that because that's not what we're targeting. So for us, it's all about the high-end local craft beer, wine, and I really don't see that happening. But it's not a perfect world.
Is there private security with the shopping center?
Yes, sir.
All right. Will you develop relationships both with your inspector and with the police department?
Definitely, sir.
And is there anything else you want to say about crime or how you're going to make sure that you run a tight ship?
Well, we're not going to go for the shorties or any of the
What's a short?
It's a half a pint, so we're not going to go for those or any of the rolling papers, that sort of thing.
How about 40s?
No, definitely not.
All right.
Definitely
not. How about Phillies blunts?
Nope.
How about Mad Dog or any other type of fortified wine?
No.
All right. Or Four Loko for that matter?
No, sir.
But these are things you are not interested in selling?
Not at all.
Any kind of drug paraphernalia whatsoever?
No.
Even though they're going to legalize marijuana next Saturday? But you're not going to carry products like that. Okay. Now let's talk about those unique products and the local craft work that you've discussed.
So, I mean, it's all about the local craft beers, wines, and the distilleries that we have in this beautiful state.
How many do we have?
Well, we got about 120 different craft beers, 28 different distilleries, 70 odd wineries in the state of Maryland. So there's quite a bit to choose from.
And is that going to be a staple of your shop?
Well, that's going to be a predominant staple of our shop. But along with that, it's all about as soon as the customer walks in, it's the responsiveness and the education that we're going to provide. We're going to set up a kiosk. We're going to have a QR code where the customer walks in, they scan, and they get a series of questions along with their what are they interested in. And then that kind of really focuses on where exactly everything we within the store as well.
So how many years cumulative do you have in the hospitality industry selling alcohol?
Over 20 years. I've been within the hospitality industry, so I know exactly what it takes, what kind of work ethic, as well as the customer service and the education that you need and training the employees. getting them properly trained, and the inventory controls. So it definitely matters.
Now, you spoke about your father being very upset when a waiter
definitely.
served a cadet or served in a sting. Therefore, do you fully understand how serious this board takes compliance?
Definitely do.
And how serious it takes underage sales?
Definitely.
All right, and you're confident that you can put in place a system that will allow you and the business to remain compliant at all times?
Yes, sir. So we're looking at various kinds of POS systems where, before we do every transaction, they're going to scan their ID and before moving forward with the purchase.
All right, and you're not going to put big poster signs in the window or anything like that?
Not at all. Not at all.
All right. And let me go ahead and breach this subject. You live in the city of Annapolis.
Yes, sir.
You have a restaurant in Rehoboth Beach, and that can be some pretty heavy traffic. How do we know that you're going to be able to successfully manage a store in Annapolis?
Well, I have a co-owner, my father, so he pretty much stays over there.
In Rehoboth?
In Rehoboth Beach. So he's there most of the time, and so I would be focusing all of my energy on the shopping.
All right, and the alcohol and beverage laws of Rehoboth Beach permit your father, the co-owner, to do the majority of the on-site management. And so you're going to be how many days a week at the bottle shop here in Annapolis?
I mean, at least 5 days a week.
Okay, and
5 days a week, anywhere between I'll be spending 7 to 8 hours a day at the shop.
All right, and you submitted a revised floor plan, did you not, showing dimensions? I have more. All right, you want to just briefly describe for the board the dimensions of the establishment?
Yep. So it's roughly the 22 feet and about 30 feet wide, and then about 68 feet long. We have we'll be devoting about 220 square feet of it for the stock room, and then 80 square feet will be for the bathrooms. There will be 12-door cooler with 180 square feet. Local beers will be 168 square feet. And then we have the wines in the middle. As you walk into the right will be, there will be walking, and the main entrance to the right will have our POS systems and so on and so forth.
All right, thank you. And you are familiar with a neighbor named Tracy Roebuck?
Yes.
And she has written a letter of support about your character here tonight?
Yes.
Okay. And furthermore, you had a letter written about your character by Mayor Buckley?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'd like to submit both of those at this time. Thank you.
Mr. Pratt, my standard objection as to a hearsay document.
Understood. And how about Sam for the floor plan? Mr. Brown, do you have an objection to the floor plan?
No.
I move for admission of all three of those.
Okay. No, I'll be accepted. Thank you, Mr. Bogman.
And although previously submitted to the board, it was you personally who procured these 199 signatures
Yes, sir.
on a petition to approve Gateway Village Wine and Spirits application?
Yes, sir.
All right, and where and when were those signatures gathered?
They were in dates. It's over there. Yep, June 3rd, and yep, all of them were during that date.
All right, and those were all procured out in front at the center?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'd move for admission of that petition as
Those
well.
are already part of the package.
Thank you. All right, I thank you very much. And the witness is with you.
I'm looking at this letter, Mr. Kumar, from the mayor of the city of Annapolis, which I hadn't seen before. But according to your application, you were born in 1982, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the mayor says you've been a businessman in Annapolis 27 years, during which time he has consistently proven himself to be a dedicated and successful business owner in the restaurant industry. Well, if I go back 27 years from now, that takes me to 1996. If I subtract 1982 from 1996, that means you were selling alcohol at the age of 16.
No, it's just that, we've been in the family business since 1990s, and he's, seen me over there working at the restaurant as a busboy to, these sort of things. And previously, the mayor he was a restaurant owner himself.
He still is, but that's beside. But Mr. Kumar, it says Mr. Kumar has been the proud proprietor of a well-established restaurant in Annapolis for the past 27 years. So it's not that you worked in it. He said basically you've been the owner of it. So my question is, were you really running a liquor license and a store at the age of 16 years old?
No.
If I look at your birthday,
no.
And so I'm a little confused how the mayor can write a letter like this when he's wrong. So, okay. Now, what was your ownership interest in the restaurant on West Street?
I didn't. I was managing it for my father.
You never had any ownership interest?
No.
Were you on the license?
I was on the one of the board members for the restaurant.
Were you on the license?
No.
Okay, so you're one of the board members. Are you still a board member of that restaurant?
No, that restaurant doesn't exist anymore.
Pardon me?
It's not there anymore.
I know it isn't. I didn't know if it moved somewhere else, whatever.
No.
So the 27 years, how long has India not been there?
Since 2017. It hasn't been.
Well, that even takes you back further. Now you were 9 years old when you started running that restaurant. Since it hasn't existed since 2017. Okay. And this letter is a general letter, undated. When did you get it?
I got an email.
And it doesn't even refer to you having a liquor store. The letter is a generic letter which basically says you're a really nice guy. Okay, but it doesn't say anything about your ability to run a liquor store or anything at all. You're aware of that, right?
Yes, sir.
Your application says that the shopping center is 275,000 square feet. And you say there's 5 anchors in it. Just for purposes of the record and purposes of the county being able to review this later on, you're aware that those 5 anchors in there take up over 200,000 square feet of the 275,000, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
Well, if that's the case, and that's a fact, that it takes over 200,000, you're saying that it's over 200,000 of the 275, and if the code section is right, then you don't qualify for being in this area. Are you aware of that?
I don't know.
Now, if I could ask the board, we have a copy of the application we got off of your website. And I don't know if this is a complete application or not. Could I show it to a board member, to somebody in the staff and find out? What do you mean that's all required?
The actual application.
Okay, the actual application.
No exhibits, no corporate documents, nothing else, just the application.
I'm not worried about any of those things here. Mr. Chairman, the reason I asked the question is because you have advertised tonight that this is for a Class A license on Sunday sales also. But the application doesn't have Sunday sales or anything on it, the one that is posted on the website, as to what it is. So my question is, has there been an amended application filed? And I'll show it to the witness and ask if this is his signature in the application that they filed.
Yes.
Well, Mr. Chairman, then I'd move this in, the application in, as part of the exhibit, and say that the application that's been advertised in the newspaper is not the application that's filed before. That's just something I have not seen. So I'd ask it to be moved in as exhibit A or
Yeah, you will be A.
I will object. This application stands for what it is. If there was a scrivener's error that that listed Sunday sales, then that's not something.
What we'll do, Mr. Fogelman, we'll accept this as Exhibit A for the protestant's case or the opponent's case, and you can redirect your client if you'd like.
The reason for bringing that in, Mr. Praley and Mr. Chairman and members of the board, is that there's an obligation to advertise to the public what is coming, a hearing tonight. They haven't even applied for a Sunday license, so I don't know how the application that doesn't apply for Sunday, we could be here tonight on a hearing, which includes a Sunday license, which is what is shown on the advertisement, and it's also on the agenda for tonight, which says Class A beer, wine, and liquor and Sunday license. So that's the issue. So I'm
Understood.
Okay.
And just for the record, no such request was ever made for a Sunday license, and in fact, the applicant is pleased to withdraw any request, even though it was not made by application.
Okay. If it wasn't, then it's inappropriate advertisement, because we're not here for what was advertised in the paper.
And I disagree completely.
Right.
In fact, a special Sunday license would have brought out more protestants, possibly. So the fact that it isn't what that it just showed up on the ad, I think it's over transparency.
Sure.
And so now the board can take note of that and quash it. Quite frankly.
Understood.
If we did ask for Sunday and it wasn't on there, that's different. This is the exact opposite of that situation.
And the only reason we look at that, Mr. Chairman, is under Article 4, Section 209, the hearing, you're obligated to advertise the correct hearing. And so that would be my question on that. Since your restaurant is closed down in 2017, have you been employed in the entertainment or the restaurant business?
I've been the owner of the restaurant in Rehoboth Beach.
Pardon me?
I'm the owner of the restaurant in Rehoboth Beach.
In Rehoboth Beach?
Yes, sir.
And it's in Delaware?
Yes, sir.
And you're on that license?
Yes, sir.
You haven't had any other licenses in the state of Maryland?
I had one in Columbia, but that's during COVID. That's been shut down. So
And what type of license was that?
it's for a restaurant, Class B.
So this is your first venture into a Class A license?
Yes, sir.
And you were talking about the procedures you're going to have in order to make sure that minors didn't imbibe or buy from you. But are you having a ID procedure where you can't even open the cash register until you put in the ID and it proves it's over 21? Or are you just having a procedure that allows you to check the ID?
But what we're going to have as soon as you're ready to purchase, first thing we're going to do is scan your ID. And then the other transactions will happen, so the register won't open until you're scanning the ID, and then you do the transaction.
So it will be a register situation where the register will not open until it proves that it's scanned appropriately? Because that's not the way you explained it earlier.
That's first thing you're scanning is the ID, and then you're doing the transactions, and then the register would open, and it won't even go to the next level if if the ID you're scanning is a minor, and obviously that's going to bring up that they're minor, and there won't be any sales happening.
But you mentioned that there are 120 craft beers in the state of Maryland, 28 distilleries and other things. You don't intend to carry all those items, do you, in your 2,300, 2,400 square foot?
No, not. I mean, it's a small space, so we're going to try to carry as many as we can.
Now, you've been in this area basically all your life. You went to Annapolis High School, you graduated, you've been around here. So you know how prolific and how many liquor stores are already in the area, don't you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you know that you have Liquor Martin Deli that's been there forever and a day. Okay, you know that you have Italian Market, which sells wines and other items in there, correct?
Yes, sir.
You know about the Fullers on Bestgate Road, correct? I'm sorry?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You know about Ram's Head Tavern that sells within the 5 mile area. These are maybe questions I should ask your expert more so. But where have you been buying your alcohol since you live in this area?
I live in Homewood area, so I would be going towards Pinky or Mr. G's.
So therefore, you're taking business away from other places and you're moving it to your place is what you're hoping to do, right?
No, I didn't look at it that way. There's plenty. I'm not focusing on some of the things that they are focusing on. So for me, it's more about craft wine and beer and more of a, food pairing targeting.
Well, if you're into craft wine and beer, why'd you ask for a beer, wine, and liquor license rather than just a
No, it's
beer and
spirits. I
wine?
mean, they're distilleries as well. I mean, they're locally brewed, and then I'm trying to, bring in the high end and that sort of thing. So, I mean, I've been running a restaurant, so for me, it's not about, those particular ones that you're talking about, where I'm going to be hurting other people's sales.
Mr. Kumar, I'm not challenging your ability to run a restaurant. I've been in your restaurant many times. I know it's been closed. I mean, the whole thing. I've been to the restaurant. So I'm not challenging that at all. I'm just looking at the application process and what your history and abilities are in selling on a Class A license where you're the only one on the license.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I'm assuming your TIP's qualified.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And is there going to be a requirement for all your employees to be TIPS qualified?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And will this be a family-run operation?
Well, me and my wife, but mostly it's going to be me. She has a government job, so I don't think she has anything to do with me.
So you're going to be on 24/7?
Most likely.
I don't have any further questions.
Redirect, Mr. Fogelman.
Just briefly, Mr. Kumar, you obviously didn't own your parents' restaurant when you were a teenager, right? All right. But obviously, people saw you at the restaurant all the time.
Yes.
And it was like you were a part of the place.
Yes, sir.
And you swept so many floors that you certainly had some sweat equity in the place, even if you didn't have an ownership interest on paper. Right?
Yes, sir.
All right. And you didn't apply for Sunday sales in this license, did you?
No.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Brown? All right. Fogelman, next witness.
Yes, thank you very much. We'll call Dr. Patno.
All right, Dr. Patno, you've already been sworn.
I have no requirement that he be certified and qualified.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
I've known the man for many years. Always on that side of the table, not on this one.
You guys never sit next to each other, but
We sit next to each other and grab each other. That's about all.
We actually get along pretty well.
I know.
all right, go right ahead. He'll be qualified as an expert.
All right, thank you very much. Just by way of background, though, Doctor, you are trained in what?
My doctorate is in leadership and community development. I have a master's in economics and marketing. I have an MBA with an emphasis in urban planning and management. And I have an undergraduate degree from Old Dominion in business.
All right, and I am moving, not already, moving him in as an expert witness in market analysis and consumer needs.
Sure, he'll be accepted.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, Doctor, you were hired for this matter to do a market analysis on the area at 2645A Housley Road in the Gateway Shopping Center.
That is correct.
All right, and you went ahead and did a market study.
I did.
All right, and what kind of data did you use to do that study?
Well, we look at the demographics in terms of number of people within the marketplace. We look at the consumption patterns of what people are buying and how much in terms of alcoholic beverage. And we look at sales within the Class A establishments within the marketplace as we've defined it. In this case, we've defined, as the board, some of the board members may remember, I typically look at a market in terms of drive time, of the drive time from an area. And a typical Class A small alcoholic beverage license would probably draw up to about 10 minutes within a market area. This is a little bit unusual in that the market area that it draws, I've extended it to 15 minutes because of the anchors that are there. They clearly draw from a much larger area. And so the people coming to that shopping center therefore become part of the market as such. Just to give you some indications that the population within 10 minutes of the proposed marketplace, 26,389 persons. This represents 11,739 households. However, when we expand that to the 15-minute drive time, the market expands to 92,132 persons, 37,394 households. and all economic population trends say that this area will continue to grow at about 4% a year over the next several years. In looking at consumption patterns of the proposed market area, as I said, there are two factors that we look at in terms of the strength of a market area. First being household expenditure data for alcoholic purchases, and in this case, the data tells us that per household spends approximately $481 per year per household for alcoholic beverages consumed at home. The second estimate that I look at is the actual sales of alcoholic beverages in retail stores within the prescribed market area. And so this is labeled as total demand for the stores in the area. Now, what's important in terms of my analysis is that the total demand within the market area represents not only the people who live within the market area, but as I've shown in my study, there are people who come from even outside the 15-minute area. And so there's actually a bit larger sales factor. So to the point, the demand for alcoholic beverage in the area from those residing, those living within the 15-minute drive time is $18,017,833 per year. And that actually comes out to about $483 per household, which I've rounded up a bit. Actual sales within the retail liquor stores within the 15-minute drive time is $24,462,360. This would indicate a rather strong retail area, a draw coming into what I would consider a real economic core within this part of the county. So we have an additional sales of alcohol at retail currently shared, an additional $6,444,527 of sales that we can account for people coming into the area. They could be tourists, they could be people passing through, it could be a wide variety of reasons why that's there. But the point is that there's certainly ample demand and sales within this market area. I counted 18 Class A establishments within the 15-minute drive time. That would give a store average of about 1.36 million. And the closest competitor is 0.7 miles away. And it's a 3-minute drive time from the proposed location. The next closest stores are 1.4 and 1.5 miles away. So my conclusion is, quite frankly, that the market's pretty strong. And it's continuing to grow. While we do have 18 stores within the 15-minute drive time, they're dispersed fairly well. We've got certainly the Liquor Mart, which is less than a mile. But then 6 to 10 minutes away, which represents typically 1.4 to 2.4 miles, we've got Bin 201 Wine, Lighthouse, Festival Wine and Spirits, Parole Liquors, HB Fuller, Harbor Spirits, Pinky's, and Heritage Harbor. And then up to 11 to 15 minutes, and this is 4+ miles away, we've got Wine Cellar, Annapolis Wine and Spirits, Grits, Mills Fine Wine, Eastport Liquors, Bay Ridge, Scott Brothers and Wine, Old Solomon Wine, and Mike's Store and Deli are the ones that fall within my 15-minute drive time. Another interesting factor, if I can find it here. Yeah. Using Anne Arundel County's guidelines of desired allocation of 4,000 persons per license, the current population count within the market area is 92,132 with 18 licenses. This market would support a population of 72,000. So this would indicate that we've got an underserved market. So with 18 licenses, it would adequately serve 72,000. If there's 92,000, then I would suggest that we have a market that may in fact be somewhat underserved. So it's my opinion that the granting of this Class A license would be to the benefit of the citizens of Anne Arundel County.
And is it your expert opinion that this market is not fully served?
There's some indication that the market is really quite robust, and there may not be enough licenses to handle the demand.
And in your expert opinion, do you believe that there'll be a negative financial impact on licensees in the area, other licensees?
Certainly, dispersed within the 15-minute, it'd be negligible. Certainly the store within 0.7 miles may experience some indication that there's a new store in the area, but there's certainly plenty. The interesting thing about these shopping centers is that they sort of have their own clientele. The people who are normally going to the Safeway will always go to the Safeway. They're not likely to be traveling elsewhere. So in terms of public accommodation, certainly having, I've always been a big proponent if you've got a major grocery store like a Giant or a Safeway and a major pharmacy in the area, a liquor store makes perfect sense because it's fits right in with that kind of consumer choice.
And your written report was compiled in May 2023?
Yes.
All right. And I'd move for the admission of Dr. Patnode's report already in the file.
Absolutely.
Is it available? We'd never seen it, and it wasn't online.
It's part of the file.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
It wasn't disclosed when I went to look at the file.
We submitted it within 14 days of the hearing pursuant to the rules.
Okay.
Yeah, when we looked at the file, it wasn't, there was no
When
report.
did you come over to look at it?
I'll have to check.
It'll be a minute. Do you need a copy of it?
Pardon me?
Do you need a copy of it
I'd
right
love
now?
to see a copy of it.
Thank you.
Or else I'll have to do all this from memory. You don't want me to do that.
Do you have an extra copy, Mr. Fogelman?
Here, I gave us one.
Yeah,
That's
just
all right.
supplied a copy.
This will be Exhibit 4. Do you have any additional questions?
No, I just really a closing.
Sure. We'll see. We're going to let Mr. Brown,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Lyman cross. I'll give them a couple minutes to review the report.
Let me start now, so we can move along, and then I'll figure out as we're going. You said there were 18 licenses.
Correct.
Okay. Did you include Giolitti's in there?
Well, I know you understand my drive time methodology. If it fell within my...
Did you include Giolitti's? You didn't hear you say Giolitti's. Giolitti's is located right across from the Whole Foods, and they have a carry-out license, a class license, which allows them to sell alcohol to go. Did you include that?
I did not.
Okay. Did you include Italian Market? Because you said it was 0.7 miles was the closest one, and Italian Market is 0.4 miles away.
It did not fall on my list.
So you didn't include Italian Market. Did you include Ram's Head?
What is Ram's Head? Is that an A license?
The D license.
It's a D license. I included no D license, sir.
Pardon me?
I include no D license.
Well, D license is a carry-out license, isn't it? You can sell alcohol to go in a D license,
Yeah,
can't you?
but it doesn't serve the same purpose as an A license.
Well, is that what the code says? We don't look at a license because it doesn't say the same purpose?
I
Or we
have to
look
look-
at how many carry-out
I
licenses
have to
there
look
are?
at it from a consumer perspective. And so what the law says or what it indicates is of no interest to me.
My question is, it's no interest to you, but my question is, did you look at the carry-out licenses that existed at Giolitti's, at Italian Market, and at Ram's Head?
If they are D licenses, I did not.
Pardon me? And what about a B license? With a
B
carry-out?
licenses are the same way. B licenses are primarily to serve alcohol on premises as a courtesy. They will sometimes sell.
So tell me where the code distinguishes between the saturation point on a B license, a D license, and an A license as to whether or not you have to count a B license which does carry out. For example, did you include Cooper's Hawk?
No.
and you know that they sell wine to go. And on the first floor, you can go down and join their wine club, and you can buy it. Not just buy it for consumption on premises, but I can go there and buy cases of wine anytime I want. That wasn't included either?
No.
Okay. Did you include pinkies?
Pinkies?
Yes.
I did.
Okay. That's just a little further out. I was surprised. Okay. Did you include Eisenhower Golf Course?
No.
No. Okay.
Way to educate me, what license would that be?
Pardon me? A D license, don't they?
It's a C. Yes, it's a
They
C
have-
license.
They have a D, don't they?
No, they have a C license.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
I'll defer to the liquor board. I don't remember because I didn't check that one. I just came off the top of my head. How about the wine cellar? Did you include them? I
Yes.
didn't hear it. You may have.
Yes.
So there's 5 licenses that I've alleged that you have not included. That brings it up to 23 licenses.
They are not A licenses. I'm sorry, it's a different market, it's a different purpose.
Well-
You can argue all you want about that, but
Well,
in
it's
terms
not-
of
it's-
a consumer,
It's not what I argue, it's what the board accepts. And I understand this board in the past has accepted B licenses, D licenses, and A license for saturation issues. If I'm wrong, but that's what they accepted the last time this license was up, when the prior board rejected this license at this location. Okay, but you weren't the expert at that point.
Was not.
Okay, so you weren't here for the testimony as to the number of licenses and what licenses were not included when the board rejected it. And it went up on appeal to the circuit court, then it went to the Court of Special Appeals, and then the court up there kicked it back for some other reason. Now, you read the
Objection.
case.
I don't think this is a question.
Oh, sure it is. It's his history and background as to what this board looks at when they turn around and consider.
Objection, it's still not a question.
Can we just get to a question, Mr. Brown?
So, are you aware of the square footage of the 5 anchors in this building?
I was, yes.
How much are they?
It's a little over 200,000.
And so if your application shows 275,000 square feet is the size of the center, and the 5 anchors are 200,000 square feet, are you aware of the code section that says in an auxiliary use, you cannot have more than 50% of auxiliary uses in the shopping center?
Objection, he's been called as an expert in market analysis, not in Anne Arundel County.
Overruled. He's just
planning
asking
and
if
zoning.
he's asking if he's aware of it.
I'm just asking aware. Are you aware of that?
No.
Okay. But you are aware of the square footage of the 5 anchors?
I am.
Pardon? By the way, how does the square footage of this store compare to the square footage of the 18 that you looked at?
It's within line. I mean, yeah, some of them are larger.
Well, you said that the average for a store was $1.3 million.
Yeah, if you spread it out, so.
That's pretty low, isn't it? Well, looking at other places, most stores are looking at $1.8 to $2.1 million gross sales, aren't they?
Okay, 1.3 would be alcohol sales only, not any other auxiliary sales
That's right.
within store.
Yeah, but most stores, and you're in a market analysis, you do that, most stores are looking for a minimum of 1.8 to 2.1 just to break even, aren't they?
Just on alcohol sales, between 1.4 and 1.6 is about where they are.
So the average stores around here are only doing 1.3, which is below the average that's necessary. Is that correct?
I won't concede that because I don't know.
And where is this business going to come from? How much new development has actually occurred in here that is causing new business to develop?
The population has been increasing. The demographics are clear. They're showing where it's trending. So within a 15-minute drive time, that population has increased, and it's trended to increase by 4% over the next couple of years.
And if we add my 5 more units into there, now we're at 23 units in this area with a 92,000 population, right? Okay. So it's not under-serviced as you say, because this would
Well, I
be
would disagree.
the 22nd, this would be the 24th unit. So if we divide 24 into your 92,000, we come up with approximately, what, 30-some hundred? I'm doing it off the top of my head, so I apologize if I'm wrong.
Yeah, that's all right. Let's see.
92 divided by 25.
24.
24, I'm sorry.
Good try. Well,
92,132 is what you said, right?
Right.
I got my calculator right here, too.
Oh, good, because I don't have mine.
Okay, 92,132 divided by 24.
No, that's the issue is 92,000 divided by 4,000 gives you the number of licenses.
Okay, well, I was going to do it the other way around. 92,000 divided by 4,000.
Right. Tells you how many licenses. You won't like your number.
What, my number?
Not if you divide it the way I just did it.
23. And this is the 24th license. It comes up to 23, and that's existing right now. So this is a perfectly supported community, isn't it?
I would disagree because they're not A licenses. It's a different ballgame.
Well, so that's because you didn't include Ds and Bs in any of the carryouts. Like, did you look at Cooper's Hawk at all? You drive by there?
No.
Okay, did you drive by Giolitti's, or did any of your team drive by Giolitti's to see what they sell and how much carryout they do?
No, I mean, I strictly stayed with Class A.
And is it only Class A license that can sell alcohol to go?
No, you know that's not true.
I know.
But it's a different marketplace. It's a different it's a different consumer demand.
By your theory, every shopping center should have a liquor store.
If it has a grocery store, yeah.
So every shopping center with a grocery store should have a liquor store.
I believe they will support it, yeah.
And as a result of that, it would take away business from the other stores in the area surrounding it. Isn't that correct? Other liquor stores.
The other liquor stores will maintain their current marketplace at their current customers for the most part. If they have customers that are going to this particular shopping center, they may lose a few.
So therefore, it does have an adverse effect.
The nature of the adverse effect would be enough to drive somebody out of business. That's not true.
Well, since the average is only 1.3 million now, and you said earlier that you need 1.4 to 1.6, and the figures I've heard are 1.8 to 2.1 million, then we're adversely affecting a lot of businesses, aren't we?
I disagree.
I have not completely reviewed the report, but even if I review the report, I don't know if I'd have any more questions. I've been obnoxious enough, long enough, so I'm willing to
You've
pass.
been pretty chipper tonight.
What can I say? I was told I had to be easy on you tonight. So.
Well, thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Fogelman, any redirect?
Just very briefly, would it surprise you, Doctor, if a D license or B license did more than 10% in sales in
Typically, it's
off-premise?
12%.
12%.
Yep.
All right, as opposed to the A, which is what percent? 100%. 100%. Thank you.
Any recross based on that?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, at this time, I'm going to ask the members of the public who are going to testify for this license. If there's anybody here who wants to testify in support of this license, to come forward.
So may I be excused? Are you done with me?
I was done with you before you started.
I don't think it's
You can leave, Jerry. Thank you.
Thanks.
Is Dr. Patno, are you being excused?
I am.
I don't believe. Does the board have any questions?
I'd say, does the board have any questions before I take off?
No, I think it was a very thorough presentation.
Mr. Duffy always has a really interesting question for us.
Not tonight.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, well, we'll see. So nobody's here to testify in support of this license, right? Okay. I'm gonna ask everybody who's here to testify against the license to stand up, and we're gonna get a head count first. And you all have signed in on the sheet, correct? Okay.
I have 16 who signed in opposition.
I just want to make sure that we get an accurate head count as well.
Somebody did not sign.
I thought they were on support.
It's 17 total.
Okay, 17 total. Great.
Could I have 1 second to talk to Mr. Fogelman?
Sure, absolutely.
I just thought I'd mention it, just in case. Okay.
Ready?
Thank you.
Okay, absolutely. So now we're going to have members of the public who are here to testify against this license to come forward one at a time. I'm going to ask you to step up next to a lit microphone. You're going to have to state your full name and address. I'm presuming everybody here has already been sworn at the beginning of this. I know there was one gentleman who came late who's testifying. If you could just let us know that you haven't been sworn when you approach, we're going to have Deputy Chief Inspector Ford swear you in at that point in time. We want to try to limit testimony. I see there are 17 people here who are against it. So if somebody has already said what you are planning on saying, consider it heard by the board. You don't need to show up and reiterate what somebody else has said. And then the chairman has the ultimate ability to cut you off if he sees fit at any point in time. So with that, we'll have the individuals who would like to testify come forward one at a time. Whoever wants to come first, just come on up and put your name and address on the record.
Mr. Chairman, I cleared the chair out here in case I want to use the center. That makes
Sure,
sense.
that's fine. The center's fine, wherever you'd like. So who wants to testify first? Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Sarol Basnet. My address is 1231 10 Oaks Road, 21227.
Okay, go right ahead and tell the board what you'd like to say.
Been a proud customer and a loyal supporter. I come here 2-3 times a week, every week, just for hanging out with friends. And this is my go-to liquor store, and I love the deli too.
Okay. Mr. Fogelman, do you have
Just very briefly, you live in Baltimore County?
Baltimore County.
Okay. And are you affiliated with friends, relatives with anyone who owns a liquor license in Annapolis?
In Annapolis.
Okay. So you don't know any of these other liquor stores other than that you're just a customer?
Just a customer.
Okay.
That's
Thank
correct.
you.
Mr. Brown, Mr. Lyman, any questions?
No questions.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your testimony. Come on up, sir.
Your Honor, my name is Binodu Preti. Binodu Preti, I'm here to oppose this application.
Okay, and just your address and then go ahead.
Address, 8403 Allison Road, Lutherville, Maryland.
Okay, go right ahead.
Okay. The reason I'm here is I'm also a small businessman. I came from Nepal, and one of the, the Liquor Mart in Delhi is one of my community member. He's recently purchased, paid a lot of money, and like He said that, I own myself a liquor store. It's recently, after the COVID, it's a good thing for the employee. It's a little difficult for the small businessmen. They raised the minimum wage already, almost $15 hours. And also, it's really, there are quantity buying things. Big liquor store is like a kind of dinosaur. They already squeezed the profit. And the gentleman who is applying for this is very, very nearby there. And the break-even point, we need to have more than $1 million a year, and then given that rent is very high. So I am here to reiterate, to support as a community member. We came all the way from Nepal to Dreamland, and we work hard. I was a dishwasher, the pizza delivery man, same way that, and it's a kind of first dream. They just paid money, and unforeseen. I know it's the other side. Everybody wanted to try, but it's just a little bit very difficult. And given that situation, and then the character of my friend is amazing. He's an outstanding friend for the community. He helps out not for only Nepali community, for wherever in local area. So lately, because of the labor shortage, and then to retain the employee, also, like I said, it's a very competitive market. Rent is very high. All given that, I know I'm not a customer. I'm not at anything. I have a tremendous love. Guy pour a lot of money. I said whether I can be relevant or not to the court, I don't know. But as a community member, as a small business owner, I'm here to support that liquor mart and daily oppose this license. And again, to keep the employee is very expensive. Rent is expensive. Competitive market. It's really difficult. And from that point of view, because for the customer, everywhere, every corner there is a liquor store. Competitiveness is already there. So the very liquor store is nothing special. It's nothing special creating like craft beer, any idea, nothing. It's simple, another store to make money. I have tremendous respect, but it's nothing outside the box store, so it has reason to attract. Therefore, I am here to oppose this nomination. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fogelman?
Thank you. Mr. Upperty, you are a Baltimore County resident, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you have multiple liquor licenses. You have interest in multiple liquor licenses in Baltimore County and City, right?
Yes, I have a Class B license. According to the state of Maryland, allows up to 5 licenses. Mm-hmm. And I do have a wonderful restaurant called Namaste Baltimore Indian Cuisine. While I'm sitting in the court, I just read one of the 10 best Indian restaurant in Maryland. It just published, and while I was sitting, I just noticed.
Well, congratulations. Let's try to keep your answer.
So yes, I do have that. It's a Class B.
Thank you. And you are of Nepalese American descent.
Yes.
And nearly everyone here to speak tonight is of Nepalese American descent. Isn't that right?
Majority of them, not nearly. Some of them non-American. There is gentlemen, others. Yes.
Almost all.
Yes.
All right. And most of them don't live in the city of Annapolis, do they?
Some of them, some of them not.
Okay.
And also what they do, like when they have a wedding, big party, when they do the big purchase, they support community member, and it's not a far way, 2-3 hours drive. It's a 45 minutes. If sometimes we come and buy this.
And that's very noble, Mr. Upperty, but many of them aren't going to know specifics about the market needs of the city of Annapolis, right?
We don't know in the detail, but we know in a general, because a lot of us work in a liquor store and in being employee, we can understand that, but we don't know the details.
But you and others are here to support your Nepalese American friends, right?
Nepalese American friend, yes.
Okay. I have nothing further. Thank you, Mr. Upperty.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Again, if you want to add something that hasn't already been said, please feel free to come forward. But again, try to limit your remarks to things that have not already been addressed. Yep, go ahead. And again, we're just going to need your name and address for the record before you start.
My name is Deva Kesi, 1231 10 Oaks Road.
What was that again?
Dewa, DEWA.
And 123 110 Oaks Road?
Yeah.
And city and state?
Arbutus.
Okay, Arbutus. All right, go ahead.
Like the way they said about supporting the local community. As my brother, who has a liquor store, we still support the local community. All the employees, whoever were there before, they are still there. Actually, we're supporting the local jobs too. That was the key.
Okay, I appreciate it. Mr. Fogel?
Thank you. And you live at the same address as the first person who spoke in opposition?
Yeah.
Okay. And you said your brother has a liquor license?
No, I mean to say, like, he's the brother.
He's your friend?
Yeah.
Okay. And you don't purchase liquor from a liquor store in Annapolis on a regular basis, do you?
I don't drink.
Okay. Thank you very much for being
You're welcome.
Mr. Brown, Mr. Lyman?
No questions.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Hey.
Good afternoon. My name is Joseph John David. I live at 1810 Hall Brown Road in Annapolis, Maryland.
Okay, go right ahead.
I consider not having another liquor store in the area. We got enough in the community as it is. It's a lot of, they have good deli sandwiches there, Liquor Martin Deli. My wife works there. She needs to keep the business up. And other than that, I don't drink, so I'm a recovering alcoholic. And I see a lot like what's going on in the world with this. We have another liquor license, and I go shopping at Safeway, and it's very congested there. A lot of kids running around. You get a lot of alcoholics driving their cars around. It might hurt somebody. The parking's very horrible getting in and out of there. So that's all I have.
All right, appreciate it,
I'll
Mr.
be
Fogel.
real brief. You understand that this is a Class A license, not a tavern license, so people aren't going to be coming out of there having consumed alcohol. In fact. Yeah. Thank you.
Good evening, Gord. My name is Kuljit Singh. I live at 7510 Canton Way, Glen Burnie, Maryland. As you all remember, I was here in February. We just took over Festival Mind and Spirit. Since then, we don't think there's a need for another new license. We have kept our all employees, 4 or 5 that were previously there, all that lives locally. And as the market has been tough, there have been a lot of competition, as you know, like our expert mentioned. So I'm hoping that you guys do listen to our local people here and hopefully deny this request.
Very briefly, thank you, sir. Sir, do you serve 40-ounce beers at your store?
No, I do not.
Okay, and you don't serve half pints of liquor?
We have certain brands, yes.
All right, and you realize that they've stated on the record they're not going to be selling half pints of
That's
liquor?
not our main business, anyways. We have well versed in wines and craft beers as well.
Mm-hmm. But do you sell Wild Irish Rose?
Wild Irish Rose, no, we do not.
Do you sell Mad Dog 2020? Have you prepared any kind of market study or any kind of evidence that the addition of a Class A license will deleteriously impact your business?
No.
Okay, I have nothing. Thank you.
Just a couple questions. He asked you what you sold and you didn't sell, but if you wanted to sell 40 ounces or Wild Irish Rose or half pints or Mad Dog or anything, you could do that because you have a Class A license which allows you to sell it, right?
Definitely.
So just because he says that today that he won't sell it doesn't mean, depending on the business, it'll carry through with that, does it?
Yes.
You do what's necessary to make a living and to support your people, correct?
That is correct.
No further questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else who wants to testify who hasn't had their ideas already stated? Okay. Yes, sir.
Good evening, board members. My name is Shivam Amin. I live at 957 Sperry Way in Sykesville, Maryland, and I am my wife is actually a co-owner on the license. We were here back in February with Festival Wine and Spirits, and you know, without taking too much of your time, I do actually work at the store. I am part of the sort of a manager who helps out my friend with the operations. But without saying too much, I do want to say that you did mention market study, and you know, our expert did say that I think the number was 1.3 in order to sustain or something like that. I do know the numbers for our business. We've been there, and in order to stay for us in business, that number is way higher. So you just mentioned that, you know, have you done any studies? So
You can question.
I'm just
Mr.
referring
Fogelman.
to the studies that your expert has done. I have not personally done any studies, so.
Okay.
But that's.
Did you say you were the co-owner or your wife
My
is
wife.
the co-owner?
My wife is the
Okay.
co-owner.
All right. And but you say you work at the store?
Yes.
And Sykesville is a long way to Annapolis. And does your wife live in Sykesville as well?
Yes.
And commute?
Yeah.
Okay. That's quite a distance. Wouldn't you agree from Annapolis?
Yes.
If you were managing a liquor store, a Class A license?
I don't think it is. No. We're here. I'm here 6 days a week. She's here about 4 to 5 days a week. And you know, it's our business. We put our hard money into it. So
Well, is there a county resident on the license?
Objection. Where's this going?
Why is that? Yes, it's
There has to
Yes,
be.
you do.
Had to be
Okay.
county, you
We
wouldn't have
license.
approved it.
All right. It's been answered. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Brown, anything?
No questions.
Thank you.
Anybody else who wants to testify to say something that hasn't already been said, please note that everybody's been accounted for. We have your names and addresses on here, so if you have something new that you would like to add, please feel free to come forward. Okay. All right. Mr. Fogelman, I presume no more witnesses?
No, thank you.
So I'm going to turn the case over to Mr. Brown and Mr. Lyman, and we'll just do closing arguments at the end, okay?
Thank you.
Mr. Brown, Mr. Lyman, any witnesses that you'd like to call? You don't have to think that hard.
I hate major decisions. The answer to that is no specific witnesses, and I'm not sure why we have blow-ups that are this big. Maybe you can see them from a distance, I don't know, but there's a list of signatures here that our clients have brought into us of 100 people who are local businesses who are not in support of it and are objecting to it. But other than that, the case we have is probably more in closing argument than in facts and testimony.
Okay.
Except I would like the board to take notice of the application that was filed, as I said earlier.
Sure, the application has been admitted. That's your.
I'd also like the board to take notice of the attachments to their application, which show the anchor stores and the square footage of everything involved.
Sure.
And I would present to the board the code sections, including 1810-107, which is extremely important, and also 113, which is, I'm looking for my code section.
Right.
And I asked the board to take judicial notice of its own advertising that's in the paper, which unfortunately is inconsistent with the application that was filed before this board.
Okay. And would you like to move those signatures into evidence as exhibit?
We'll give you the short, small ones, not the big ones. How's
Mr.
that?
Fogelman, do you have
Just a quick
take a look at it? Sure.
Just a quick look. Thank you.
And we don't have a handwriting expert. Steve, I think there's 85 signatures.
Yeah,
is all there is.
I'm just looking at
I think there's only 85 on that.
Towns.
Any objection to those, Mr. Fogelman?
No objection.
Okay, those will come in. Those will be opponents B. I'll label them. Okay, well, if that's it, then we can turn it over to Mr. Fogelman for closing. Would you like a couple minutes beforehand, or do you want to just roll right into it?
No, I think I'm really impressed with the speed with which
As am I.
tonight's
That's why I was
hearings
gonna
have
offer a couple
progressed,
minutes,
and I
so-
do not want to slow
Okay,
it down.
sure. Go
So,
right ahead.
Why do you all look at me when you say speed?
I was
We're
scanning
very
them.
impressed.
Yeah.
We might catch sunset on the longest days of the year still.
All right, go right ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah.
First of all, I want to say that I'm extremely impressed with the Nepalese American community and their cohesion, and they do very much care about one another, and it's pretty impressive for them to come from all over the region tonight to be here. That said, I don't know how many years the average applicant for an Anne Arundel County liquor license has lived in Anne Arundel County in 2020. When I grew up in Crofton, it was a different world. We had Red Barn Liquors. You had Liquor Mart. I mean, these places were held for decades, for generations. So when I see a son of Annapolis here asking for, quite frankly, one of the greatest privileges that the government can bestow upon someone, the license to sell alcoholic beverages, it's pretty impressive. I mean, it takes me back. And what it was speaking of taking me back, having grown up in Crofton, there was almost nothing between Annapolis Mall and Crofton on 450. And I don't need Dr. Patno's report to tell me that there's been this explosion of population and development in Anne Arundel County and in that particular corner of Annapolis. I believe we've proven the need, the public need for a new license by the expert testimony of Dr. Patno. We've proven desire from the public with the testimony of the applicant and the petitions in support of the project. I think Mr. Brown said he had about 85 signatures. We have about 199 signatures. But I think there's clearly there's a need, and there's a need as expressed in the research by Dr. Patno showing 4% population growth every 2 years, by showing a growing alcohol sales per capita, by showing that we're actually losing some alcohol sales that by the market being underserved, and that folks may be grabbing their six-pack in Bowie on the way home, or grabbing their six-pack in Greenbelt or wherever. This son of Annapolis knows this community. He loves Annapolis. He knows what a wonderful place it is to grow up, to do business, and to build a community of neighbors. He has a long record of compliance, both with his restaurant in Rehoboth Beach and having worked for the family business for many years. He is a fit and proper applicant. There are indeed other licensed retailers in the area, but there is more than enough population and more than enough pocketbooks to sustain all of them, even with the addition of another license. He has already expressed his vision for a high-end consumer experience that will showcase the state's best products. It indeed is a unique concept. The general health, safety, and welfare of the community, there's no way they're going to be jeopardized by this operation with private security, a well-lit shopping center with national anchor stores, and ample parking. Mr. Kumar has been proud of the love and support that Annapolis has given his family, and he's excited to be a part of this community in yet another capacity. And for those reasons, under Article 10.202, we believe that we've proved public need and desire, the potential effect on the existing licensees, the potential commonality or uniqueness of the services and products, and a negligible impact on the general health, safety, and welfare of the community. We thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fogelman. Mr. Brown?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and council, I'm I think there are two major impediments to this, and I'm not sure how to address them. The first one is planning and zoning. Did they fall down or did they not address it? You got the report. You just have a testimony of the expert down here that over 200,000 square feet of this shopping center are auxiliary uses. You have the testimony and their application, 275,000 square feet is the shopping center. You have the code section that says you can't have more than 50% auxiliary uses. And this is an auxiliary use. Your application says it. The county missed it. There's no right to approve it because they don't fall within. And this board is the deciding factor. It can accept what it wants to and reject what it wants to. And the problem here is, I feel bad for Mr. Kumar's situation, his application. He ran a nice restaurant. Of course, he didn't start it when he was 9 years old, like the mayor says indirectly. But, I mean, that was a generic letter. If you look at that letter, unfortunately, it's just a letter saying, he's a good guy. And nobody's questioning whether you're a good guy or not. But the question is, have you met the criteria? And they haven't met the criteria on the zoning aspect, number one. But number two, how do you approve a license which was improperly advertised in the newspaper? Because it calls for a Sunday license, but yet they didn't ask for one. But yet your application doesn't show it at all. And the agenda for tonight says, guess what? This is a Sunday license. So we're here on two different things. And I mean, there's no way you could approve this license if it's advertised for something less than what they wanted. And I don't know how you can approve it when the advertisement is wrong and doesn't comply with the state code. But there's a couple other things that bother me a little bit. Now, you heard Mr. Patnode, and he's been before this board many a times. The last time he was here was for the Robinson Crossing, if you remember, the 22,000 square foot liquor store, where he said, oh, we can build everything, we can do what we need to, and we're going to draw people from 30 miles away. Okay? Why did they go to a 15-minute drive zone? Is it because they're bullying people from Best Buy and other places? Is it because it's a regional situation? No. His answer, and unfortunately I've had a little time to look at this, is on page 3 of his report, the market area, where he says the 10-minute marketplace is 26,389 persons. 26,389 persons. Then you go to his report on competitive factors, where he found the 18 draft places, which he missed 5, in my opinion, because I think you have to look at A's, D's, and B's. You have to, because that's the carry-out license. There are 9 licenses within his 26,000 person area. And if you go with 9 licenses, that is less than 3,000 people on a situation. It is oversaturated right there. It is completely saturated. If you look at 4,000 per license, you need 36,000 people in order to justify 9 stores. So when he saw that, 9 stores, 26,389 people, he said, I can't justify a new store. So let me expand it to 15 minutes, where I can pick up all those other residents in the city of Annapolis and the other places and do it. That's why they went to 15. If you remember, if any of you do remember, when they had this last license for the depot here, they tried to keep it within a 10-minute area. And this board rejected that one. The only reason it was granted out there was based on the Court of Special Appeals finding some esoteric reason to do it. And one thing they said, and quite frankly, even after the Court of Appeals came down, I don't think this board back then had to approve it, but it did. But then again, it didn't matter because they no longer had a lease on the premises. No longer had a lease, if you remember that one. So let's look at this. By his own documentation, this is oversaturated. By his own documentation, with 4,000 people for a license, they need 36,000 people to get there. They ain't there. And that's why they expanded it. Now, looking at even a little further, he talks about a 4% increase in population. Look at his pop facts demographics summary. and you look at that pop graphs demographic side of it, it's this one if you decide to look at the report. It says between 2023 and 2028, the population is going to increase by 2.27%. That doesn't sound like 4% a year, does it? Then it talks about the households are going to increase by 2.44%. And then the family households are going to increase by 2.36%. It's not 4% on his own documents. And that's not a 1 year period, that's over a 3 year. And you've got them acknowledging the figures of 1.3 million is what the average store does, and he testified himself. 1.4 to 1.6 is what they really need in order to survive. My figures are a lot less different than that, and you've heard those from other experts before about how much you need and what's going on. But this area is doing 1.4 to 1.3 because it's an oversaturated area. Now, here was the issue I have. You deny this, and he can't come back to this location for how long? For a year. Quite frankly, I think he should withdraw his application and come back in and fix this thing up and figure it out differently. But that shouldn't be any reason for you to grant this based on the fact that they don't have the data. So I'm stuck. Everything in his report says this doesn't qualify. Everything in this report says we got a grocery store here, so therefore we need a liquor store. You got 5 anchors in this place, over 200,000 square feet. And this is an auxiliary use, as the county says. You know, whether those people are all Nepalese or not, whether they're friends and all that, they showed up because of the importance, because they realized how it adversely affects the local businesses around here. Even we hear from Mr. Kumar, he's not shopping at Pinky's anymore because he'll have his own. So it takes a little bit of license away. Question is, where's the increase in liquor sales occurring? I wish I could pull back the testimony from the Robinson case where you had several people testify as to how a store adversely affects it coming in when it is not oversaturated. But this is saturated to the point that there's no room for another liquor store here. I'm sorry that there isn't, because I believe in the power of free enterprise, that people should be able to get out and do what they want to run a business and let the dollar and let the customers take care of it. But you need the numbers first, and the number 4,000 is in the code for some reason, no matter what it is. I didn't write it, you didn't write it. But it's there. And they rely upon that number to try and prove that they are undersaturated. They used the number, not me. Their report came up with the number, not me. And until you look at the fact of what he's done on his exhibit showing 9 within a 10-minute area with a 26,000 person population, you can't figure it out. All I can tell you is that we're here, and as much as I love the free enterprise system and all that, there are rules that need to be followed. And this fell apart from the very beginning. And I'm not sure why, but it did. So I'd ask you to deny this license, unless the applicant is willing to withdraw it at this point so it can come back with a different thing later on. And what is so unique about this store? Nothing. They say they won't sell pints. They say they won't sell the 40 ounces. But your license, if you give it to them, doesn't limit what they can do. It gives them carte blanche. And all this argument comes out without even considering the other 5 applications that they missed in their 18. But this would be number 10 within a 10-mile radius. Therefore, they need a population of 40,000 in order to get it. This would be number 24 in a 10-minute radius, a 15-minute radius, which means they only qualify up till 23. Either way, they lose. By their own figures, not by ours, but by theirs. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Fogelman, give you the last word.
I just want to say that I wish he had spent more time cross-examining Dr. Patnode if he was trying to get into his head. I think it's clearly established that a B and a D license are different than an A license. Dr. Patno testified 12% of off-premises sales as opposed to 100% for a Class A. So they are oranges and apples. And when you talk about significant impact disrupting your business, when 1/8 of your business maximum is off-premises sales and then you go down to 10%, that's a de minimis impact. So the B's and the D's are red herrings here. The planning and zoning issues are red herring here. Mr. Brown continuously saying that this application should be withdrawn is a red herring here. There's really not that much to it. My client has proved a prima facie case of the factors to be considered under under the Alcoholic Beverages Article, Section 10202A. Thank you very much.
All right.
It's 410. Yeah, 410. Yeah.
Okay, thank both sides for their arguments. We're going to be taking this matter under advisement, which means we're not going to be rendering anything this evening, but we will as soon as possible. So I want to thank both sides for everything, and I think that will end the session for this evening. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
This will fall into the open meetings for deliberation now?
What's that?
It falls under the Open Meetings Act for deliberation?
We'll make the motion with a written decision probably at our next hearing. Yeah, but we need to take it under advisement with review the transcript and everything like that. But we will make the decision on the record pursuant to the Open Meetings Act, and we'll issue a written opinion as well. Yep.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Counselor. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank everybody for their time. Okay, with that being said, this hearing for June 27th is adjourned. Thank everybody.
You got it. You're very welcome.
Did we get it?
Yeah.